Is it? Braden, how we doing? We're good? Okay. Lieutenant. I'm just kidding. Hey, everybody. Welcome to our, let me find my sheet here, April 27th, City Council work session. Going to call it to order. We're going to look for roll call. Bonnie, we are all, 6 of us are present. Got Amy on video. You're good?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
We're good. Can we stop that? Amy's muted now. Anybody else? Okay, excellent. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. All right. I'm so excited for this Pledge of Allegiance. We have the Tucker High School girls varsity soccer team. Earlier this month, the girls soccer team won their first game against Lakeside High School in 15 years. Woo! That is amazing, ladies. I love it. Anytime that we can beat Lakeside, I love it. Yeah. Members of the team are here and we're going to celebrate with them and they're going to lead the pledge. We've got, where's your coach? You look like one of the students. We got Coach Chris Russell. We have Emma Sakaris. Did I say that correctly? All right. Shelby Hartman, who I have watched grow up in my neighborhood. I'm going to embarrass you more. And Anna Hodder, who is the goal scorer for the Lakeside game. All right. Woo! Amazing stuff. All right, let's lead us in the pledge. Of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, girls, we're really proud of you. I feel like we should take them out to dinner. I'm so excited they beat Lakeside. Let's do it. Let's do it. All right. And I see some parental support out there too. Thank you. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. All right, we're going to move on to public comment. Rules of decorum come from Robert's Rules of Order. Our meetings are held in accordance with the Georgia's Open Meetings Act. We will call up those that signed up to speak and then open it up to those in the room. If you signed up by mistake and you thought we were taking attendance, you can feel free to say pass. You will each have 2 minutes to speak, but keep in mind, neither council nor I will respond during that time, and we might ask some staff members to follow up with you. All right, Bonnie?
We have Gary Gatlin.
Good evening, all. Were it not for the surgeons at Grady Memorial Hospital, I wouldn't be here today to tell you why I think the roundabouts are good ideas, because the traffic has gotten so bad on Idlewood, really not only heavy, but often out of control. And I realize that mine is just an anecdote, but people who live in that area could tell you that there's a lot of accidents, there's a lot of people hurt, and it's really kind of an important thing for Tucker, the government of Tucker, to take those things seriously and try and manage this ongoing and increasing threat to the quality of life. And it's a very fundamental assault on the quality of life. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Keith McGahee.
Thank you. I've been in Tucker for 70 years. My house is behind a junkyard. We had another fire recently. That makes 3 fires in 3 years. This was a few weeks ago. There's no fire hydrants out there. There's not a 50-foot buffer zone out there. No fire hydrants, people. There's 7 acres out there. We have a lot of houses, a lot of fires going on in South Georgia, as we all know right now. I've spoke to the city before about this issue. Nothing's happened. If you read the charter, the city has some responsibility. Read the charter. You know, this is public safety out here. 3 fires. And it's something for y'all to think about. Y'all are out, code enforcement's coming in the neighborhood and giving tickets to people for just working on their cars. That's not going to burn the house down, I don't think. The fires are going to burn the house down. People right now are scared. They are all over the state. There's a drought going on. I know I do farming on the side. I got farm tractors, and my family's big time farmers. I know it's affecting a lot of people, these fires, and it's something to think about. So what's it going to take for the neighborhood to get some help out there? I don't know the answer. I don't. You know, I've had people ask me, why am I being told to put my car on the driveway right here when the fire's right here in the junkyard? And under state guidelines, it is classified as a junkyard. Read the code section, what it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sharon Myers.
Evening, everybody. I wanted to talk again. I spoke a little while back about the intersection of Lawrenceville Highway and Brockett Road where it crosses over the railroad tracks. I know there is something coming in the works. Very excited about changing that intersection, making it safer, making it flow a lot better than what it is, especially if you're coming towards Brockett Road, coming over, going south. So many times you try and time the light and you'll get stuck because one light will go red, the other light will be green, and then you start to go slow. And if you stop in a good amount of time, you can still be stuck where the light is not even visible on that side. So I am very excited when I heard the project was going to have all the lights sequenced and they will be changed timing wise. I think that will help with safety. That'll help with control. I love that there will be some mandatory turn lanes that I think are great. Figuring out which lane to get in always causes a little confusion. Putting more signage, making the lines in the street more clear. All of that is going to help that place flow. And now that Sherry's is staying put, that'll be even better. So I thank you all for looking at that. That's very important. I know there's one also going to be happening over there at the Quick Trip, which that looks pretty cool too. So I appreciate y'all's hard work on that. And I'm going off of the original drawing. I know when I was here last, there was talk about some possible changes. I wasn't quite sure about that, but from the original one. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Bonnie?
Neil Stubblefield.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Neil Stubblefield, North Lake Woods. Here in my capacity as President of the Tucker Civic Association, and I'm here to invite you and the public to our spring meeting, which will be a week from this Thursday over at North Lake Church of Christ. We're going to be featuring the DeKalb County Board of Education District 4 candidates. There are 5 candidates in the race this year. Of course, early voting began today and goes through May the 15th. Our event will start at 6 p.m. We'll have a meet and greet. And about 7 o'clock, we will start our forum. We'll have questions and responses with all 5 of those candidates. So this is one of those times when you can lay down your weapons against the Lakeside folks. They're invited as well because District 4 is, does include both the Lakeside and Tucker High School cluster. So invite your Lakeside friends over. And again, that's Thursday, May the 7th. North Lake Church of Christ, right down the road here on Coolidge from 6 until 8 p.m. Look forward to seeing all of you there.
Thank you. All right, we got a little bit more time. Is there anybody else who would like to speak? All right, I'm going to close out public comment. Mayor's opening remarks. So the Henderson Park Master Plan Survey is live and can be found on the Plans and Studies webpage or surveymonkey.com/Henderson Park. This will be open until May 22nd. Lots more opportunities for public engagement will be at our city table at Tucker Day this Saturday, as well as a two-day open house here at City Hall, June 5th and 6th. And contrary to what you're reading on Facebook, I do not want to cut down all the trees in Henderson Park. That is not true. This is an open session for us to hear from you. So we appreciate all your feedback. We also have some fun upcoming events. Tucker Summer of Fun starts Friday. How is it already summer? We got our first Friday concert at the Tuckertown Green featuring Trina Mead and Company. Music starts at 7. Full schedule and details can be found at tuckerga.gov/summer. Tucker Day is this Saturday. Festival runs from 9 to 4. There's the parade. I also heard that there's a dunking booth. And someone might have signed up for that in the afternoon. So if you want to come dunk me because I want to cut all the trees at Henderson Park, come find me. I told them all that we'd have to raise a lot of money. Right? I told them they got to raise it for a good charity because I think I could raise a lot of money on that. I'm going to see if there's openings for the rest of you too out there. Sign up for the afternoon. The water will be warmer. Little Explorers Club on May 3rd at the Peach Pit. That's going to be a fun time. I know Charlie's in charge of that, and it's going to be really great. And then Main Street Theater is in the middle of their spring show, Shakespeare in Hollywood. Go to tuckertheater.com for details and tickets. And as a reminder, we typically reserve this second meeting of the month as a work session where we hear presentations and have conversations. And tonight we'll be focusing on the proposed budget for fiscal year 27. And I'm going to have a little preamble to that before we adopt the agenda and begin. So I want to express my gratitude before we start this budget discussion. I want to say thank you to Eric for stepping up, our new finance director, although you've been with us for how many years now? 4 years. And you took on the responsibility with discipline and focus. And I really appreciate that. I want to thank Derek for bringing your expertise and perspective to this process. You have a lot of experience in counties and cities, so we really appreciate you as well. I want to thank John and all the department heads for being mindful of economic realities that we're all facing. Other governments too. We're reading about them in the news, just watching their budgets, and for working collaboratively with each other to prepare thoughtful recommendations. I also want to thank you to council for the time and energy that you've been investing throughout our 2 retreats and the briefings and all of the other work you've been doing to prepare for this. Those retreats really mattered because they helped us define our draft vision and establish the filters we should use when making decisions, and Eric's going to bring those up for us. As we move through this fiscal year 2027 budget discussions, I ask that we keep those priorities front and center. We cannot do everything. Let me say it again. We can't do everything. And I want to be clear that this is not a competition between districts or departments. It's not my project or your project. It's the city's project. It's Tucker's projects. When you think about this budget, I want you to think about the emails you receive, the conversations you have with residents, and the daily issues that they bring forward to us. Those moments shape how people experience our city government. This is not a money issue, it is a priority issue. Right? We've said that before. ARPA funds are gone, federal infrastructure dollar funds are gone. We're not everybody's facing that, right? So, you know, if one project moves forward sooner, another project might move back. Every decision carries trade-offs. We must balance competing needs, limited capacity, and expectations that continue to grow faster than available resources. We're good at what we do. The more we do, the more they want. And again, we need to maintain everything we have and anything new we build. We've got, I see Ishri peeking around the corner there. We need to have good maintenance because we don't want us to build something and then it falls apart and looks like poop. So I had a little inspiration this morning from a LinkedIn post from Dr. Brooks Williams. I shared it with some of you. He says, a park bench is not just a park bench. A drainage complaint is not just a drainage complaint. A street light out, a broken sidewalk, a code issue, a full trash can. None of these are little problems that exist by themselves. Every project, ask, or promise is connected to labor, equipment, scheduling, staffing, legal limits, public expectations, and a budget that is already stretched. We have to decide what comes first, what can wait, what can be repaired, what must be replaced, and what cannot be promised without creating a larger problem later. This is where judgment matters. Every decision is about time, money, precedent, fairness, long-term sustainability, and whether solving one problem today creates 3 more tomorrow. And I've been guilty of that too. It's as simple as, oh, let's cut the tree down for somebody. And then the tree turns into this, and then it turns into a new fence, and then it turns into this. And one problem that came in on Facebook or a phone call then cost $250,000. So we need to be thinking about that. This is where trust and strength is strengthened when we have good service delivery and we execute projects with excellence and we maintain them with excellence. Good local government often comes down to the discipline to see the whole picture before reacting to just one piece of it. So as we look ahead to this fiscal year, our job is not simply to balance numbers on a spreadsheet. Our job is to set priorities that reflect the daily realities of serving all of Tucker. All of Tucker. And I'm excited for this budget, and I think everybody did an excellent job. And we have so many great projects aboard that we'll be talking about, and so many more to come. But again, it's not all going to happen this year. So I just wanted to set that. And I know there's some frowny faces up here, but it's okay because everything we do for Tucker is going to be good. And we want to do it well, and we want to do it with excellence. So I appreciate you listening to me get that out there. All right, we're going to move on to F.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second it.
Thank you. Any comments on that? All right, all those in favor? Let me see Amy up there too. Thank you. All right, new business. You're up, Eric.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Nope, I got the arrows. So. Alrighty, this presentation is just kind of an overview of some of the things we've talked about in the briefings. A lot of it's going to be repeat information from John's presentation from the delivery from 2 weeks ago. And then we do have a couple of other documents in front of you. We have 2 sheets that we use to get through your briefings of where current projects are right now. The third new document is for the Tucker Summit CID projects that we've partnered with them. The fourth item is items that we heard from you all during the briefings, from multiple briefings, so that we have kind of a list to get through on items that we might want to discuss tonight, so. Here is just the schedule that we're on right now. We're here in the workshop at the work session. Next Monday, we'll have a second workshop, which will, if there are any changes that come out tonight, we'll fix those and change those before that, so that you'll see draft 2 and you'll see what the first read would actually look like if there are no more changes at that workshop. Just very high level highlights for fiscal year 27 personnel proposals. We did request one new personnel person for general maintenance tech. The second bullet point here is all for Parks and Rec. There are 19 seasonal employees being added, and one not permanent, but year-round part-time person for all of the out-of-school programming that we have. We have recommended a 3% cost of living COLA for personnel increases for everybody. One big item here is the studies. As we said in the first delivery, the downtown master plan and the Tucker Rec are rebudgeted. We will come back on that May 11th meeting with a budget amendment to remove them from this year's budget, so that fund balance will carry over because the general fund does not carry forward. And then we have a community-wide survey that will be driven by community development. Here, I'm going to stop and I'm going to hit the point of the deficit, just so you all understand where the deficit comes from and where those funds are. So we have about $26 million of revenue projected, and then 28 point something expenses. The additional funds being transferred are going to be from the fund balance that we have and it really is going to come from 25, where we finished our audit. We did not spend as much as we expected to, so that when we presented that, well, not we, but the auditors presented theirs, they said we had 9 months of fund balance. That additional fund balance is being used here. So I know we had questions about the community-wide survey. Do you want to do that now, or do you want to wait till the end for that?
I'd say it might be a good idea to just pause for a second just to kind of dive a little bit further into that. And we're just wanted to have community development just speak a little bit about what our intention is with this community survey.
So we are looking to do a community-wide survey in fiscal year 27 that looks at prioritization of projects as well as financial spending on capital-related projects. We're just in the beginning process of developing a scope and looking at potential vendors, and obviously want to hear from council about any specifics on how you would like to see that done. We hope that this will continue to drive the prioritization discussion that we've been having with council at the work sessions, as well as those standards for how we make spending decisions. So we think we'll get a lot of great data from this survey.
Do you want to just talk a little bit about some of the cities you've looked at that do this?
There is a couple cities in Florida that have done this, including the city of Dunedin. They have used a professor out of the University of South Florida, and they go really targeted into specific capital projects, parks projects, road projects. So it's kind of like a strategic survey related to capital. It can also have some financial education. It can begin to poll the community on, do you like these projects? Do you want to see more of these projects? Are you willing for the city to spend more money on these projects? If so, in what ways, right? So it can begin to get not only input on the parks projects and the roads projects and the public works projects, but also funding mechanisms.
And then just this second section here on this is the 2-year budget overview. So we're really focusing on fiscal year 27 and 28 when it comes to capital. These are the focal points you'll see later in the presentation, where even when it comes to grants, we want to be able to, once the CIP is approved, we're going to use 27 and 28 as our kind of where we're going to hone in on where we want to apply for grants to see if we can get some additional funding to finish some of these projects a little bit quicker. Fiscal year 27, obviously strategic investment year. We're increasing the infrastructure and service funding. Fiscal year 28, stabilizing and sustainability, continuing delivery with controlled growth. The result of these is a more connected, safe, and resilient Tucker. With that, from those retreats, we talked about how we have created a vision for the city, and we all know this is a work in progress. This probably won't be the very final rendition, but we all have seen this multiple times now over the past couple of months, and this is that vision that we're using to build this budget, including the capital projects. The goals of the vision was community connectivity, and we're continued investment in safety along road projects and all of those, expanding community engagement and programming, ongoing quality of life services, and the impact of that is more walkable, accessible, and connected city, which is one of the higher of the goals of that vision. Infrastructure, so safety, transportation, and streetscapes. We have major investments in the roads and sidewalks and connectivity in 27's capital budget. Streetscapes and mobility improvements, stormwater and infrastructure upgrades. The impact is a sustainable and reliable of methods of transportation. And then economic growth. We always want to focus on that return on investments is one of those filters that we use. Steady investment in economic development, support for local businesses, activation of downtown and gathering spaces. And we're trying to have a sustainable growth and expanded opportunity. So as we talked about these filters, these were kind of the filters that we have used to kind of build that vision that you all have created for us. Return on investment, number one. Infrastructure reliability, community identity, fiscal resilience, service delivery excellence, and safety and accessibility. This budget in front of you are what we delivered 2 weeks ago. Connectivity and safety, walkability and infrastructure reliability, economic opportunity, focus on maintenance, and building a stronger Tucker today, tomorrow, and together. This is just the same capital screenshot that you saw from the previous presentation. It's just a nice pie chart with all the projects and how much each of the capital projects are in this year's fiscal year 27's budget. And we can worry about next steps here. I guess we'll finish the next steps of this presentation. I'm going to sit down just in case I need to answer any questions from my computer. Second workshop is next week. First read and public hearing is May 11th. Second read, public hearing, and adoption will be June 8th is the current schedule. Yep, please. So I don't break anything. Yes. And this is shared, okay. So Amy can see it. And Amy, I did send these to you before the meeting started, just so you know, if you have your own copy, if it's too hard to follow along on the screen.
Yep, thank you.
These are a little bit real close. So this first page is just the same documents that you saw where what each project is at. So the first 2 pages is exactly what we used on the briefings. It's the 10-year CIP, what's in it, potential projects that are not in it. There was a request to see what the Tucker Summit CID and the city were partnered on, which is page 3. And what we're going to really focus on our conversation tonight is page 4, is going to be the items that were brought up by multiple of you during your.
I asked real quick, I asked for page 3 because we don't have, we have lighting coming up to that one district in the Tucker Summit CID that's paid for in this past budget. They would like to see more. We don't have a specific request, but we may have to look at that and have to reprioritize something here that's not tied to a grant and already getting ready to go under construction. So just something that I asked for that just so we could have it all in one place, so we could remember that, if that doesn't happen and we get pushback, we can say we're investing a lot and being a good partner. So.
Question.
Yes.
I was just wondering, because you were talking about the operating budget, and I know I asked this in the briefing as well. Um, this budget, the revenue assumes that we keep the millage rate the same. Is that correct? I
Yep.
just wanted
Yeah.
to be clear.
Yep.
So we would not roll back the millage or project to increase it, but keeping it the same, it is based on what people's property values are.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. And we don't have that information yet from DeKalb County. So that's why it is hard to have the discussion and then you don't have that. So yes.
Yeah, we'll get the preliminary report from them the first week of May, the more kind of finalized one, the end of the second week, usually around the 15th. But until we actually get that first document, I don't know exactly the number. We're just projecting off of last year's with the same exact millage rate.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to make it clear that in previous years, we've been able to roll back the millage rate, so we were keeping tax rate fairly even with what people were paying, and this is a little bit different than that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. It may be. All right. All right. So Derek, you want to lay this out, how we're going to move through this?
Absolutely. All right. And just as we're kind of looking at this, like Eric mentioned, the sheet that you have in front of you are items that came up multiple times, so multiple briefings that we had. There'll still be opportunity for if there are any council members that have something that was more of a singular issue to bring that up, but we'll kind of start first with looking at things that were within multiple briefings, because those were the things that I think were common across several briefings that we tried to really notate and make sure that we were able to get conversation for council about. There is a level of decision making that'll come with some of these if we're looking to make changes of any sort, and the mayor will lead through that. But we just wanted to go through this just to really highlight, especially these items, so that we just understood that. So we'll start with operating, with kind of looking at how we are doing that with how that came through. So with the first thing, operating, we'll just kind of go down the list and we can discuss those as much as we need to. So looking at more thorough responses from surveys, and I know we kind of broke off a little bit earlier to have community development talk about what we're looking to do with the survey. So that is really our gateway to being able to get better responses, more thorough responses, was one of the things that was brought up about community survey and how we were going to be able to get that. But wanted to make sure that, since we did kind of break off into that of talking about the community survey a little bit earlier than planned, if anybody still had any further questions about that type of comment or the survey and the mechanism to that.
Question for you, Derek. I think that also came out of conversations you had with Milton and their strategic plan. Like the first step was doing a community-wide survey, correct?
That's right. So we did talk to the city of Milton here, and so that's where I think we kind of originated part of that idea to look at this type of survey. It was something that they did with building out their strategic plan. So I think Courtney mentioned when we're looking at how to really see what those future priorities are, really digging further into that. This is that start of that, of looking at those responses, but then also eventually building a strategic plan that's going to really help us direct towards what those real strong priorities are. But the city of Milton was kind enough to really talk with us and kind of talk through their processes, as well as kind of talk through what they think they could have done better, so that we can kind of avoid some of the pitfalls within that.
Okay. And we can talk more about expectations of that if it passes that section, that passes within the budget, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
So
In fact, if I can add, we are looking to do something a little bit more specific than Milton's community-wide survey. So it would not be your standard community-wide survey. We would tailor it more specifically to Tucker and some of our discussions and priorities and capital projects.
okay, thank you. All right. Any other questions on survey? Not related to execution of it or that, but just budget-wise. Okay, you ready?
All right, thank you. And the next item that you have is beautification, landscaping, allocation of funds. With this, it was really just something that was brought up amongst multiple council members of, are we maintaining those areas? And we just wanted to make sure to highlight that since it was brought up multiple times, that there are funds within Public Works and also community development towards beautification. But we are happy to take any questions if anybody has questions specifically about that. But we really wanted to mainly highlight that.
So when I was looking through the budget book for Public Works, there is a couple spots, thank you, under Public Works where there was some beautification money allocated. I sent a question about this earlier, and then it was said that the staff didn't know it was in this budget. So I just wanted to clarify that. Is that budget for Public Works the same as in this budget book that we received?
Yes, it is. Do you have the exact GL number that you're looking up? Because anything with the beautification description, I don't see a $200 or 200,000.
Have a
budget.
page 211 under general fund under Public Works.
The description says beautification?
No, it's under the Public Works budget. It's the second page that was handed out under the 100 GL general fund number.
What's the line item say?
Sorry, landscaping at 100,000. Oh, the 100,422,652,214,000.
Yeah, so that has 100,000
Okay.
in there.
So that's, but there's a number for just that, but then there's also a number somewhere in this budget that I saw for Lawrenceville Highway beautification under Jacob's contract at 100,427,052,131,00. But it was Lawrenceville Highway beautification access, and it's looking like there's nothing there that was continued for this year.
Yes, that's historical. So that was this current year's budget or that study that was done? That was.
So it was completed. It was an item that's completed.
I see. Okay.
There's items in there that, because you're referencing, what did you go, fiscal year 24, 25, 26? So some things have a zero. I asked a similar question. Some
Mhm.
things have a zero because that's been zeroed out. It's been completed. It's been done. So you don't have to fund that study anymore because it's done.
I understand. I guess I was a little confused. I didn't realize that was a study. I thought that was money for beautification.
That is the Lawrenceville Highway Beautification and Access Management.
So that's
Study?
the study that we paid for.
Yes.
Okay. So we don't have any money budgeted through Public Works for any type of major roads for beautification in this budget now. That's what I'm reading.
Not in operating, right?
Under Public
Other
Works.
than maintenance, no. ComDev has a little bit of budget. I know you have some budgeted. You want to?
Yeah, we have tree funds that we can use to plant trees in the right of way. And then we also have beautification funds and capital under ComDev for implementation of city standard guidebook. Of course, we were on hold for a lot of these planting projects because of the City of Milton lawsuit. But we were able to just plant the 12 trees along North Lake Parkway using that tree bank funds.
And we just have our new sign too, that you did. That looked
Correct.
great. Very good. I just really quick, I want to comment. I can't see Amy. Is she still here? Because if she has a question, I don't want to miss her.
I am here and
Okay,
I'm
you let me know
texting.
then. Thank you. I
Yep, I'm
appreciate it.
texting
Thank you.
Spencer.
I'm
If I
sorry,
need
just wanted to
something.
follow up on that. So I guess I'm a little confused about where the beautification money is in this budget under general fund. That's what I was looking for.
Specifically to Lawrenceville Highway beautification is going to be on that design that Ken will be doing this year for that corridor. We don't have any construction or, implementation money in that because we wanted to finish the design before we do that, which is in the out years. But-
Right, so I guess what I was looking for was maintenance money in the general fund.
Yeah, they're
That's
looking
where I
for
was going.
maintenance.
Okay.
So Ishri, you want to talk about maintenance? Can he come up and talk about that? Thank you. Because that's my favorite topic.
Yeah, I think to answer the question, on capital projects, the budget is built into the construction cost. So once you see the project move to construction, you'll have funding in there for beautification as well. Now, for maintenance, there is maintenance line items for materials and crews. So the right-of-way, Triscapes is our current vendor. It's up for reselection currently. But there is monies in there for the crews to do maintenance citywide, and that's our right-of-way maintenance.
Didn't you add a crew?
And yes, that was one of the requests in the newest RFP, such that we'll have 2 crews cutting grass, edging, picking up debris, and things like that. Currently, we only have 1 crew. Now, with the growing list of capital projects, they remain behind schedule.
Okay. And I think I'll get to you in 1 second, and then I'll come down this way. I think one concern that we share, a lot of us here, is we've done Chamblee Tucker, we've done Juliet Road, we've done Brockett, we've done Fellowship. And the plantings are not doing great. They could be better. So when we talk about maintenance in those areas of capital improvement projects that we've done, does that account for maybe putting out something that looks better or is more drought resistant? Or is it just weeding and keeping what's there alive and trying to make it look better?
Latter option. We don't necessarily, because we're not designers, I mean, we could pick from the city's standard guidebook on plantings that we can replace, but technically we are maintaining what's there.
So have you given any thought to that?
Yeah, so for example, the medians on Chamblee Tucker. I've been working with Grace, who our deputy director, who's a registered landscape architect, and Ishri to look at some trimming of some of those bushes, as well as some plants from the guidebook that are hardy that we can plant in some of those bare medians to improve the aesthetics and then also maintain it.
And that's part of your beautification budget, tree budget, that kind of thing, or?
For the Chamblee Tucker one specifically, Ishri had funding to supplement those medians that were bare.
Okay.
And then
Well-
his maintenance budget covers maintaining it.
Yeah, the installation of it.
Okay, so what about Fellowship?
Same. We do have some funding remaining in this current fiscal year, but in future budgets, in this current budget that you're looking at, it will be built into the maintenance aspect of that.
Okay, so you do have some discretionary leeway to add or replace or do something in all the streets that we mentioned where we had those projects done.
The $100,000 covers that, yes.
Okay. Yes, yes, yes. So we're gonna see them looking better.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. John?
We need some rain.
I know, we do need rain. Everybody needs rain right now.
Thanks. But Courtney, the trees that we recently did on North Lake Parkway, you funded those through.
We funded those 12 trees through the tree bank. The rest of the project, I believe, came out of a public works account.
Okay. All right. Kara, anything else? Follow up on that? Okay. Alexis?
I just did want to add to the beautification thing. I think, and tell me if I'm not hearing right. I think, so I remember that line item being described as both the capital project and there being like a planting component to it when it was like first presented. So when I remember there being a component of it that wasn't just the design, that was supposed to be the active beautification side of it. I think also as like we're distinguishing between these things, I know when I talked about some of the beautification and landscaping allocation, I was hoping that we would have a chance to have some more of that in operating funds. That could be an annual expectation of there being not just the minimum maintenance, but some places where we have, the flexibility to be able to do some things. Several of us learned that we're a little too late on some of our annual budget because we didn't know who we had to go through. But, I think as council members, it would be nice to have a little bit of discretionary funds to be able to do things like beautification projects in our districts that don't necessarily rise to the level of a capital project, which is pretty significant and, you know, has like pretty significant implications. And so, you know, pushing things to say, oh, well, that's part of capital means that you don't have some of that flexibility that, again, maybe very small dollar types of things that could benefit the community. And so I don't know if that's part of what I would like to see that as well, right? I don't want to have to be looking at a capital project for some road and like a massive thing and be like, how can I tag in a little bit of beautification if there's an option to be like, hey, we'd like to see some slightly upgraded sign, you know, gateway signage at these corridors, or we'd like to see a few extra trees or a few extra plantings. It's not clear where in the budget we have any kind of discretion or flexibility to do that. And so I think, and that's part of what's behind it for me anyway, is I don't want to have to be like, I'm not trying to ask for a $500,000, you know, line item in the capital project. I just want to know that there's an approach annually to, again, keeping things, you know, maintained, but also a little fresh, a little creative.
So I think you can speak to that when we're doing those projects. I know what you're saying, right? So right now we can speak to that when we're doing those projects, right? What does that design look like? You know, what do the plantings look like? What do those things look like? Our charter clearly states how much we get for funding. So that's a larger conversation. We're not the DeKalb. They have a gazillion dollars in discretionary funds, right? That they get to use and 3 staff members and everything else. But I do hear you. And so I think that's a discussion with Ted to say, what does that look like? Is that the thing to do? Or can we use the discretionary funds we have now to go back to doing some of those things, right? I think that's an important thing for us to look at. So we hear you, and I think that is important for us to be able to do. All right. Ben, you're good. Amy, you're good. Everybody else, you're good. Okay. Anything on that? Do we
No,
think we've got enough?
I think so. I think we're good on that topic unless anybody else has something.
All right. Okay.
All
All right. Next.
All right. And the next topic was looking at unhoused services and what the council's direction on that would be. In previous years, we have tried companies like Claritel, and we just learned that that did not work for us in particular. I believe what we've been doing now is working through DeKalb currently, and we wanted to just make sure to provide council opportunity for direction on which way you'd like to go, whether that be continuing to work through DeKalb or if there were other options.
I'm going to start out because I talked to Tommy Phillips today, and then I'm going to pass it on to Councilwoman Weaver because she had some conversations on Friday. So Tommy Phillips, good friend, worked with him on Planning Commission, and he says he hears from you a lot. So he runs this portion of community development under DeKalb. Their department is, for lack of a better word, being beefed up, right? So they are now under Dr. Ferguson, who is over all of housing. He's the housing officer, chief officer for DeKalb County. So that's a good thing, because previously a lot of their HUD funding had shifted and changed. So they are discussing line item funding now, not just relying on HUD funds. So for a better budget, maybe, right, from DeKalb for those types of things, and that's our tax dollars too. Tommy feels really good about that direction. Everything is, like I said, just starting out. They're laying that foundation now, and I know that we had talked about, so Councilwoman Weaver is serving on a housing board for DeKalb, but also Tommy has a board that's kind of in flux because of HUD asking for more requirements. We talked about that today. So all that to say is he appreciates the partnership with Tucker, says he has a great relationship. They have a great relationship with Courtney, Lieutenant Obester. And so Councilwoman Weaver, do you want to talk a little bit about your conversations on Friday as well?
Sure. I don't have a huge update because it was kind of the kickoff meeting, but we did talk about um unhoused as a component. Sort of started with the bigger picture about just housing generally. Um did talk a little bit about the continuum of care, which is a HUD mandated um has been up until this point a HUD mandated thing that anyone getting funds for housing assistance and helping the unhoused needed to participate in. It's called the continuum of care. And they've also had to do like a particular type of data management system. And so it is typically counties or cities that take over that. As the mayor mentioned, that's in flux right now because HUD is in flux. And so I know they are, they've done a lot of work with homeless services, and they are putting that up under this broader housing, comprehensive housing strategy that is going to be developed and come in front of the commissioners, I think, in October. So that's kind of the timeline for this plan to be released. I will add in terms of the direction, and I know I had sort of mentioned this in our briefing. When I voted for the position with Claritel, I was voting for the position, not necessarily who the contractor was. And so it never came back to us to say we don't want that position anymore. And it was, a unanimous vote of the council at the time. So in my mind, that's the direction that was set, was we think that having a person who is paying attention to this issue, whatever that role ends up looking like, or whoever the contractor is. So I know we talked about that we have that good relationship with Community Service Board and DeKalb. But I would just say, I think we should be broad. It would be helpful to be broad in the thinking of there was a direction that we all said we need somebody at the city in some way who is thinking about how to help solve like the issues that unhoused people are facing in Tucker, that there is a clear point of contact and way for people to, whether that's council or whoever, to be able to get help if they see somebody that they want to help or want to serve. I know there are continuing to be one of the things that I have heard as part of DeKalb's like planning is that as the World Cup is coming, Atlanta is closing down a lot of camps. And so there are people being pushed this direction. It has always been an issue that there is not enough, immediate housing, rapid response options. So again, to my point around the direction is having a person that is thinking about who are all of the service providers in addition to DeKalb County Community Service Board. We have a lot of great folks who live in the city of Tucker who do all of these sorts of issues for the city of Atlanta. So I think we have an opportunity to tap into some of that. So that's my extra 3 cents.
Well, and it's good to have that perspective. And do you think it's something we see what's happening there? Because I agree with you. It's more of the role versus that provider. But is it something we would wrap into our discussion of a whole housing strategy and come up with that?
I mean, I think long term it makes sense because that is the whole idea of continuum, partially because one of, the best practices around unhoused, helping people who are unhoused is to put them in housing. Like that is housing first is the evidence-based best practice. And so, and it's usually permanent supportive housing. So it's smaller units. It's not 1,000-bed facilities that are, functionally jails and institutions. The best practice is put a roof over someone's head, and then you kind of come back with everything else. So I do think as we think about our code and we think about our housing, but in the short term, I think having us have a perspective on as we're seeing these, that's kind of a little bit down the road. So as these things are happening and we're seeing more frequency of this, and there's a distinction in my mind, between people who are kind of minding their own business and don't have a place to stay versus people who are doing things that are actively dangerous. So there was an issue, right? Where somebody is throwing stuff in the street, and there's a distinction there. So that's what I would say.
Okay. Any other thoughts on that? Councilman, I see you thinking. Okay. Looked like he was deep in thought.
I have one. The one thing I would like to say to that conversation was my understanding is that we had a real challenge of hiring someone and keeping them. And I think we had through the Claritel model, we were given a, you know, like a fund from what I remember and a balance, they gave us funds in order to hire. And we had at least two that, okay. And neither of them worked out. So we sort of hit a dead end. So
I was sort of intentionally not trying to, because there were different reasons. There were a lot of different reasons, I think, behind that. That was just my point to say, we did say we thought that having someone who was paying attention to that was an important role to play. And so I would not want staff to think we would have to, for example, revote that we want that position, because we were very clear in that that was a role that we thought was important.
And I don't remember all of the details per se of like what the issues were, but I think where I was coming from is just, we want it to be successful. You know, we want to, if there are things that we can do in order to, if we, you know, revisit this, let's figure out how to make it successful. Let's figure out what went wrong the two times before and make improvements so that it's set up for success.
Out of this, but I think that Courtney really from community development has always really worked incredibly hard and strived to make this, to do as much as we can in this arena. I think I know we had a really good individual at one point that was doing a lot of really good outreach and and doing it in a way that really worked well for the community. Everyone was very comfortable with. Didn't have exactly the same experience with some of the other personnel. We've also been working very, very closely with DeKalb Community Development with a very strong response from that. So I think the focus has always been really on fixing the problem or addressing the community need. And so I just want to call that out on Courtney, if you have anything else to add.
Yeah, I believe the vote that went to council was for that position was a contract with Claritel, right? And so the first individual did provide a lot of great services. I think there was some confusion about scope and scope creep, and you know, Claritel provides amazing resources, but it's one bucket, right? And all these groups do different things really well. Tommy and his team have done amazing with their work with Tucker with a very small staff and very limited resources. But they are amazing to work with. They've been able to place a lot of people. Of course, you know, they work closely with DeKalb and the community policing unit to provide that assistance, including with Claritel when someone is having a mental response or breakdown. So yeah, I mean, we can definitely continue to research anything council would like. But I believe it was a contract with Claritel, so we would just need clarity on what that next step could be.
And Tommy did stress that they have many other partners, not just Frontline. So they are broadening their reach of partners. You're shaking your head too. So they're broadening that reach. I'm going to suggest that for now, we look to see how they're going to get that program strengthened. It sounds like it's really working with Dr. Ferguson being the head of that, with your input there. And then as we start to talk about our whole housing strategy, and then maybe it's mid-year we address it if we see that the digest come back differently, and let's see, but let's keep it on our radar. Okay. Everybody's good with that? Okay. Yeah, Ben.
I think one thing that kind of through the past couple of years I've seen is just there's not enough kind of reporting in general, right? Like we don't have like any kind of KPIs. I know there were some studies that got a measurement of like how many encampments we have and stuff like that, but it was just never like continuously updated, you know. And it seems like the information comes to us in piecemeals, right? At different events, maybe it's like a meetup at the business on Main or something like that. Or I think if we could get, maybe like quarterly or biannual reports of something that can paint the whole picture of how we're doing as a city, I think that would give us a reasonable baseline to be able to act on and move forward in the next coming years.
That's good. All right, everybody's good with that? Okay, thank you. All right, next one.
All right. And just to be clear, you're, as council, saying that you do want to just stick with looking at the cab option right now.
Right
while
now,
we still
do what we're doing, but watching what they're doing, learning more from the boards and commissions that are on there. And then working it into that larger housing strategy, but being willing to revisit that as we see them progress.
Okay.
I would just add, since Ben brought up reporting, it might be worth seeing, and it doesn't usually cost anything, if the city could be an HMIS partner. It's already a system that already exists with the CAB, HMIS, Homeless Management Information System, because they're pretty standard, like ways that you could just really easily be like, help this person, this is their situation, and it goes into that larger reporting that the continuum of care is supposed to be, overseeing. So it may be a no-cost option, and maybe it's definitely a low-cost option that maybe that's like a middle ground that helps us move towards some more localized information.
Yeah, I think we'll have a great opportunity to revisit, and luckily that is part of my project for Leadership to Cab right now. So, so we have some case study to that. So happy to revisit.
All right, everybody's good.
Cool. Yep.
All right.
All right, and then next on that is just really more of topic, and we did kind of talk about this just a little bit earlier as well, with looking at how we're focusing our grants, within looking at the FY 27 and FY 28 years of the CIP. And what we want to really highlight within that thought and discussion is whenever we have a static CIP, of course, the CIP can be updated year over year within the budget process and even sometimes within the year in certain situations. But we want to be able to really give our grant writers the opportunity to see what projects that we're doing within the course of the year so that they can make a focused effort to look at those projects. We've kind of had a little bit of that conversation, but if we're looking at focusing on grants that are in further years out, the issue that we run into is that number one, is not budgeted. So then we therefore don't have the match to that project versus, especially when you're looking at your FY 27, the upcoming year projects, they're already budgeted, approved projects. We would be looking for grants and they're budgeted, so we would have the match to that. And then just say, if, for instance, a case of a 80-20 to where we're a 20% match, we're in those situations saving 80% to where we have opportunity to look at then other projects that could move forward. Okay. So we just wanted to really use that as an opportunity to highlight how we want to have a better budget and grant strategy just going into the future as we're looking at the CIP and how we can better utilize our grant writers to be able to say, these are the projects that we want you to really look at. We can talk to our other partners to really get a good grasp of what those grants are, apply to those grants, budgeted, the funds are available. So that was just more of a highlight, but happy to still answer questions towards that.
And I know kudos to department heads because you guys are all working together on these things now. You're in the room with CIP and all of that. Are you saying like, hey, when y'all are looking at grants, bring it in so we can you all can look at it together instead of one department going here, one department going here, one department going here, right?
Yeah, we really want to route all grant conversations through finance. So with that committee that we have that's taking care of looking at overall capital planning, we want to route all grants through finance so that they're, number one, aware of that because we want to make sure we have money to be able to support those projects and the grants that are being applied to. But we do have a stronger coordination to where we can better look at that as a team, I guess you could say, to better coordinate that and make sure that we are all focused on what we need to be looking at as far as the projects that we're obtaining grants for.
Okay. Did you have your hand up? Ben?
Yeah. At which point would you guys kind of evaluate when we would apply for a grant? It seems like, some of the projects, I mean, in this year's budget, some of those plans in construction and design came before kind of like my time even, right? And that has like kind of locked us into this year's budget, right? Is that, I guess where in the process are you guys bringing it back up to us? Like, hey, we're going to lock you guys in for the next couple of years on this grant.
So I think just broadly with that thought is more so let's just kind of go through the process of that okay, so we approved the CIP, so we know we've got FY27 year CIP approved. Let's just say that. So once we have that approved, we're able to start really trying to find grants at that particular time. All right, so we've got that list of projects that's approved. We're identifying the projects that could qualify for whatever the grant is. I think really at that time, once we've identified and that grant's open, is when we want to start that conversation of, okay, well, X project has this amount of funds available. We're able to apply. Here's our timelines to whatever guidance is given on those. And I think that's a little bit more of the process kind of broadly, because I know some of them are a little different here and there, but just generally speaking, that's kind of an overview of how that looks.
Well, and I hear you on that. And that's the thing is I always say, I'm not doing these projects for me. Like they've been on a plan. They've said this intersection is the most dangerous. I said, I'll be dead by the time all this stuff's done. Right. So whatever. I mean, I do. I say that because it's about your kids and all of that. But I do understand that when we think about projects, I think the public doesn't really understand it's an idea. Then there's design, and then there's right away, sometimes takes forever to buy. There's like a whole life of a project that could span, because of term limits, could span 2 or 3 councils, like Michelle Pancava, still waiting for those sidewalks on Old Norcross, by the way. And so, those types of things. So I get it, but we are getting really good matches from GDOT on some of these and stuff like that. But it is frustrating. It goes back to your earlier point too. I'm going to come next to you. I'm going to go to Virginia next.
Yeah, and if I may, I wanted to speak on that a little bit, just to kind of elaborate on what Derek was saying. There is a little bit of science to it, because we have to match, the opportunity that is, when we're talking about grants, we got to match the opportunity with what our needs are. And we also have to match it with where we are in the PDP process. Like, it has to be timed right. And there's also some conversations, and there are 2 things. There's grants, there's also appropriations, which we were able to get the $850,000 for CDS, congressionally directed spending. But it's got a lot of factors have to come together. And I think that one of the things that we actually talked about in strategic planning in the future is like getting like kind of along the lines what Derek is talking about, and staff will have that conversation as well. But really before fall of this year, getting ahead of like been looking at what the projects that we have listed, what are we seeing that the federal government or state or whatever, what are they looking for? I've been talking about rail since we came back from Washington, because when we were up there, we heard a lot about that the federal government is interested in investing in rail. So we're having those conversations and figuring out, but it does take time. It takes a lot of time. I mean, when I came on council, the North Lake Trail had gotten their $1 million award, I think in 2019, or so, like a year or so before I came on. And we're still talking about the North Lake Trail, because it is a huge, huge project, but it takes time and there's a lot of process to go through it. But I think in the long run, it will be very helpful to our community and help us move those projects along that that we know our community wants us to do.
And you're right, elections change that, right? So rail safety is big right now for this federal administration. Not so much trails. Trails were before, so you got to shift and be flexible, but it's a good thing we have projects for both, though. I think that's great.
I mean, I know I brought this up too. I have similar concerns to Vin about what we're locked into, and not from seeing it necessarily completed in our term, but we were elected, I think, to reflect changing priorities of, the city. And so, it is really hard when there is a clear interest in trails, and we're locked into a whole lot of road projects. And so when we're talking about, oh, well, we're only going to look for grants for what's in the next 2 years of the CIP, but we've been told, oh, well, we can't put trails in the CIP because there's no budget for them because the road projects are taking up all the budget. It really makes it feel really frustrating, particularly when there are also monies that could actually make something get done faster. I mean, it's a chicken and egg a little bit of like, maybe some of these trails wouldn't take 5 years if we just said we have the money and we're going to fund it now. Maybe we could actually get it done in 2 years. And I think that goes to the priority around economic growth. I was a little concerned to see, I didn't remember us talking about this, like a slow and steady approach on economic growth, when I think we're in a place where we really need to be like pushing and driving that. So when I think about our capital projects and my own personal priorities and thinking about where the funding is going to come from those, the things that are going to be transformative, that are going to be like the town green, that like when people see it, there's going to be more investment that pulls in. Those feel like they should be like a high priority. And I feel really stuck. I feel like we keep getting presented a capital improvement plan that is so many legacy projects before most of us were on council. And I feel like we just keep getting like this like handoff of like, oh, I can't do that now. And we're going to push all these things to 2030 and 2034. And like, it would be nice to have a way to say, hey, we heard what you all said. This year, we're going to get this trail done or this sidewalk project.
Well,
done.
that's coming up in the capital.
Yeah, I'm just saying,
Yes.
but we're talking about CIP because it says focus.
Yeah,
grant.
but I'm saying, we're talking about grant projects. I gotcha. But down here, we're going to get to that roads versus trails. But when we're tied up with that government money, we could take everything out of that CIP budget and throw it at Tucker North Lake and be done and not do anything else and get the trail done. But that's something for us to think about,
Yeah,
right?
I'm just saying, I think it's important that right now it feels like, oh, well, we got money for this. And so that's the project we're doing. Or we said we have the ability to change allocations for funding. We have not really done that a lot. And so when we say, oh, well, there's money towards this thing, it doesn't have some of those projects don't have to be that way.
So if we pulled out of a GDOT project where they're doing 80% of the match, I know, but I'm just saying like right now, the ones that we're looking at in the CIP are huge, huge percentages. We also got to be careful not to tick those folks off, right? I mean, they've already started right away. They've already bought right away in construction. But I hear what you're saying. And that's the discussion of there's upcoming intersection improvement projects that are not under construction and don't have a grant. And that's going to be the discussion of, do you not do those and you push them further out and you move that money more to trails or you move it more to beautification. I mean, that's the discussion that's coming up, right? Yeah, go ahead. Oh, Amy, go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, another thing I wanted to bring up on grants is, Derek, it's going to be great if you are kind of looking over this, because we do have a situation where with the Yellow Trail connector, where the estimate for the project that we then applied for the grant with it's too low now. The estimate now is much higher. So it's not 50% funding with that grant anymore. It's closer to 20%. And so I think we need to talk about, I see on the document that it says projects we have to do because there's a grant. But when a grant goes from 50% to 20%, I think, that would have made me rethink parts about that if I had known at the time that it was going to be 20%. So
Grant is really 50% still of what we told them it was going to cost to build it.
right,
That's our
right,
mistake.
exactly. Right. That was our mistake. Or as these things drop, as they go on over months and years, the costs go up. So we've ended up in a situation where it costs more now so that the grant is not as much of a benefit proportionately as we thought it was going to be.
Yeah, that's a good point. So with that thought, we do talk about especially looking at the full scope of our projects. So I know in the past, uh, particularly in certain areas, we've only looked at pieces of, and then maybe we come back next year for another piece of. So kind of to that point, to a degree, that we're looking at the full scope of every project. So if we're looking at any type of project, we need to know the entirety of the project because that does dictate the type of grant, how much we're asking for a grant, does council want to do that project, so on and so forth, that I think lead us down. So I think strong lesson learned on that. So I think that's a strong mandate that we do have going forward, is that we are making sure, give us the full project. Council can decide at that point, do we do project? We can always still phase in projects, even if it is something that's a little bit larger. But we want to have all the pertinent information available so that as that is then coming to council, then you can make the best decision possible.
That one was not about inflation, but I hear what you're saying. Cost
Right.
change. That was just a poor estimate. So it wasn't inflationary issues. All right. So on this, you're telling us that you guys are much more focused.
Yeah, so we
Bringing
are
grants
yeah,
in.
yeah, so focus on project scope, but then also how we're looking at grants, what we're applying to for grants, and how that's then coming back to council so that we can get as much. I mean, obviously, we want to get as much free money as we possibly can, but make sure that we are focused on how we're doing that and have a strategy to do it, just so that we are maximizing what we are able to do. We don't want to have any more of those type of errors like Councilwoman Troche mentioned, but we also do want to still be relatively aggressive in looking at how we're approaching grants, because getting that money, of course, then has the potential to free up other monies for other projects. So we want to take as much opportunity as we possibly can in that vein.
Nothing's ever free. All right. It's somebody's money. All right. Let's move on to capital. In-house studies with no construction money in CIP, and that's looking at Montreal Park. And hey, good news today. We got the email that we close our properties. We own them. Ted sent that email. Closing happened. Yay.
Yes, absolutely. So just another point of reference for this is we wanted to talk about this. This is an in-house study that we are looking to do. So community development would be doing this study for Montreal. So as you know, with closing Montreal, the two properties, we're going to be looking at abatement with the two structures that are on those properties. And with this, there is no construction money that is budgeted currently for this area. But what we're looking to do with this is, because of the volume of money with, of course, purchasing the land abatement, we do believe that it would be a good idea, just as an overall organization, just so that we know what our future plans are for this park. So of course, we'll clean it up and it'll sort of be passive at that particular time. But I think as far as what future usage is, we would believe that we want to just have a clear idea of what we are looking to do in the future. Okay.
You talk about in-house, why in-house, and the expertise that we have in here to start to do some of these smaller master plans without going out to contractors.
Yeah, absolutely. Given that, where we are with our current budget and current intake of funds, and given the fact that it is a smaller project, we decided to propose to do that in-house. Again, our deputy director is a registered landscape architect, has worked for the companies that we typically consult out to do these master plans. She's got a lot of great experience, and so we're going to do that one in-house. We're still going to have community engagement. We'll still have neighborhood meetings. We'll still do online surveys. There'll still be a master plan at the end of it, but just able to save some money and do that in-house, which I think will be great. And obviously it's going to be a smaller scale project than what we're doing for Henderson Park. We need to figure out, once we tear those houses down, what are we going to do? There's also other issues that need to be studied with that park, right? Designated parking, a bathroom building. There's currently a porta potty in the right of way for that park. And then signage as well, so people know about it. But obviously we need to get input from the neighbors and see what they want to have happen, but not planning anything extreme.
We have a budget right now for taking down those houses. Is that part of everything that was budgeted for this year?
Yes. Yeah, we have money in capital to abate the 2 structures. So we'll be tearing down the buildings, the accessory structures, filling in the pool. There's also about 6 trees that are dead or dying that need to be removed. And then we have money in this fiscal year for that plan. So there's no ask in FY27 for Montreal Park.
How much was the investment? Why not keep the pool? We have another aquatic center. I just heard, sorry. Let's just cut down all the trees.
Only 6 trees on
Okay.
these 2 properties.
Okay, so let me, because I'm kind of behind on this because I was not on council when all this was discussed. So we purchased homes. What's the whole budget on all of that?
We purchased the properties for
442.
and we
Okay.
budgeted 150.
150 for abatement.
Abatement.
Yep. So far, we have done asbestos testing. There is asbestos, so the demolition will also include asbestos remediation. And then we also budgeted money for the plan. It was in there is 25,000. We won't be using all of that, obviously. Henderson was a little over what we budgeted, so we had some flexibility.
Okay, great. Good work. Any questions on that? Kara?
Yeah, so I was just curious, when we get to the point for the plan, how that's going to look, who's going to be leading it. So when you get ready to move forward, I'm sure it's this fall. I'd love to know more.
Yes, now that we've closed on the properties, we can start figuring out the timeline, but hopefully we'll start it here soon. I imagine well before the fall.
Follow up on that, Councilwoman Schroeder? Okay, good. All right. Everybody's good with that, Ben? Amy? Okay, excellent. Recreational feasibility study scope. Tell us about that.
All right, awesome. I'm going to actually kick this one over to community development to talk about the scope of the rec feasibility study.
Yeah, so we know the topic of the rec center has been a big one. It's a 1950s elementary school that has served a lot of great purposes and amenities over the years. However, being that it was built in the 1950s, there is a lot of ongoing maintenance issues, right? And that has a lot of cost. And now that we're 10 years old, we wanted to look at doing this feasibility study of the recreation center. And we also have the Church Street green space that we've looked at studying in the past. We have a field next to the rec center that could be programmed with something in the future. And so we have a draft scope for a feasibility study for a recreation center. So this would look at what we say is a comprehensive, deliberate, and intentional process to determine the interest in and feasibility of building a new recreation center for the city of Tucker. We would look at various property. We would look at the existing rec center property. We would look at other park spaces. We'd also look and see if Church Street would work, if we needed to acquire property to build a new rec center, and if there isn't even support to rebuild the rec center, right? There's lots of options that could come out of that community engagement, perhaps, and how you want to strategize it. Perhaps you build a smaller center and you work with your programming to transition it while you rebuild a rec center, but it would have a community engagement. We would look at market demographics, facility program recommendations, conceptual layouts and design, cost estimating, funding sources, and then an estimated time frame for implementation. So it does look pretty extensively at a lot of different things. This is just a draft scope that we developed several months ago, and we'll continue to refine it if this is something council wants to move forward with.
What was that discussion? Were people just asking for clarity on that, since this is on that list of, it came up in more than one session?
That's correct. That was clarity about that particular topic.
Councilwoman?
So I have multiple questions. One is, because this came up in our Parks Master Plan update. And so this is something that I've been, which kind of ties to the previous one a little bit, that hoping that whatever plans are moving forward on our parks are referencing back to our robust, very strong Parks Master Plan update that has a lot of like maybe 1,000 foot or 10,000 foot level, and maybe we're getting down into like 5,000 foot or closer. For me, I was hoping that part of this conversation about this feasibility would be a conversation that was a little more inclusive of all of the council, because the previous conversations have been very much like one-off, and like everybody has different opinions about different things. I know it's come up in several retreats where we've been like, hey, can we have a conversation about it? And we haven't had it in like a work session or anything. But really, like, some of the things that are in the Parks Master Plan update would make sense to put at a new multi-purpose facility, not just what our current rec center is, right? So one of the top things that came out was a performing arts center, cultural arts center, as something that the community really wants. So just to name, like, I think limiting it to rec center when the master plan has like I think a bigger vision may just like narrow down some of our, again, to that piece of like what is the interest and what is the support for the building, so how we can have something that's more holistic. I'm wondering also if that can be tied into the community survey that you're doing, because if we're asking people what their priorities are, meaning what are they willing to be thinking about bonds or higher taxes on, like however we can, align that with that feasibility study, I think would be good.
And I think that's great, because I talk about multi-purpose too, because more buildings means more staff and more bills and more maintenance and all that other stuff. But you do mean, when you say recreation center, I think that's just the blanket term. So maybe we start to look at a different term, right?
Yeah, we can definitely change the term, and I'm happy to have any, meetings or discussions with the full council. Again, this was just a starting point as we were working through some other plans and studies last year and trying to decide how we wanted to propose things. It could be, 3 centers, right? Of course, that's more staff and more maintenance. Maybe it's 3 centers in one, maybe it's multi-purpose. So we're happy to continue to refine this as much as needed.
So if it remains in the budget, then we can schedule a work session to look at scope. Like, we can all give our opinion, but we're looking at the scope of what we're requesting folks to look at. So, maybe if it passes in the budget to do this, then we can have a work session to further refine the scope.
Yeah, and there will be some overlap between the community survey with this and then the community-wide survey that we talked about earlier in the meeting. So we've got to figure out the strategy behind that and the order of that, because we do want to touch on both of those topics about financing and bonds and everything like that.
Yeah, and you got to have the study to understand what you're putting out for the bond.
So speaking of the budget, so I have a follow-up question about that, because this came up. I have a concussion. I'm confused. So I don't remember what the answer to this question was, which is, we have budgeted previously multiple years for a city hall feasibility study, for a rec center feasibility study. So is this budget a rollover from those previous years? I think I've also had heard that there had been money set aside for whenever we did that. So is this new budget? Is it rollover? Is it reallocation?
So because this is a study and it's paid out of the operating, and I mentioned it earlier, we'll be coming with a budget amendment to remove the budgeted funds from this year so that it can roll over in the fund balance to pay for it next year. So that's how we're going to operate. I thought this was the first year we had a feasibility study. I know we had previous city hall, like $7 million budgeted, but it was never like a certain, that was prior to having a balanced CIP. So since we balanced our CIP, or at least balanced our last year, we're going to try to pass this balanced CIP this year. We had to remove that to stay balanced within it. So, and that would be leading into more of the alternative funding options for that.
That would definitely be a bond.
Yeah, it started as a Church Street feasibility analysis, right, for a city hall, and it has grown and changed over the years. But with having, a vision statement and priorities, it's a little bit easier to now go into a study, and have the right time.
It's time to bite the bullet. Get it done. All right, Ben.
I don't know how to say this without like angering people. I know that, all these plans, people fill out, they answer, they say, oh yeah, we would love a new rec center. We would love a senior center, an indoor heated pool, pavilion, right? Is it possible for us to just have a small survey saying, laying out the reality of what we're doing? A quick tempo to see if people will support a large project like this, right? Like, hey, are you sure you want to support a rec center when it means it's, 30 to 50 million dollars and we have to go out to bond and we have to delay other projects like roads, trails, whatnot? Because I think, when we fill out these surveys, from my perspective, I don't see the full picture as a citizen, right? When I came to the parks master plan update, it was just like, hey, what would you love to see here? I would love to see them all, right? I'm not thinking about the budget. So I think it's very different if we were to ask people like, would you support this project if it costs this much versus like, would you just love to have everything?
That's a great point. One of the things we're doing with the Henderson Park Master Plan is having them do a cost estimate and also a prioritization phasing plan so that people know that everything in this plan is not going to happen tomorrow. It may not happen in 5 years. It may not happen in 10 years, right? With the Henderson Park Master Plan, we've not really focused on budget, right? We're trying to hear from the community. With the rec center and the other survey that we're talking about, my intention is to be very open and very clear about, the financial implications and the cost and what it means. And so there's going to be an education component as well as a question to say, like, would you support this? Right? Because that's a very important question.
Yeah, like, just a simple question like that, framing a little education could mean we might not even need the rest of the study, they're going to answer that at the beginning. Sorry.
No, that's a very good point. It's a good point. I think you got to, yeah, and I think you can address it with a little bit of that, but it's also, they all might say, yeah, I want a rec center, but we don't have something to say, or a multi-purpose, what it is, and then here's a cost. It could range from this to this, or from what you've told us in the study, then this is what it could cost. Yeah. Yeah. All right.
There were component. I mean, I think it is important to understand that like all of these types of plans include a whole wide variety of inputs. So the Parks Master Plan update in the in-person community engagement, they did several, did do a funding piece and it included maintenance. It was really great. There weren't enough people out that came, but the actual like inputs around, do you really want to pay for this thing? Like that was part of it. So like, I agree that we should be making sure that the part of the feasibility is, and it should be, if we're going to do a bond, what would it take for you to be able to do that? But so I don't want to be dismissive of our Parks Master Plan because it included the survey, but it also included some of those other pieces.
But didn't we go around in a jar? We put money in a jar. It's a long time ago. All right. Are we good on that? Everybody feels good? Okay. Amy, you're good? Okay. Gateway sign location or locations.
Maybe. The conversation that came up with this about gateway signs was, and this I know will be a little bit more of a broader discussion eventually too, for council to work through down the road. But the thought was, where do we want to have our gateway signs was, I guess, the first thought. With the appropriate nature, I believe we have one that's budgeted for Richardson, I believe it was. Is that the location that we would want a gateway sign? And I think council discussion and decision probably around that. And it might not be something I think that's like absolutely settled tonight, but the discussion is just leading into that thought of where would we want gateway signs to be as a city.
Courtney, do you want to address anything there?
Yeah, so the city gateway standard guidebook addressed a lot of locations where we would want gateway signs, and we have several different styles of gateway signs. Of course, we were able to complete the first one on the land that we acquired from GDOT, and we were able to move forward with that one because it was actually on a piece of property and not in the right of way. So as we still work through this City of Milton lawsuit and what our options are, we identified the remaining parcel at the Richardson Street Road project. There's quite a bit of land left that we could do an enhanced beautification project and gateway signs. So that was what staff recommended, but we're happy to look at any other locations or not doing it this year at all, whatever council chooses.
Did you have, refresh my memory, you have it budgeted as a separate project, capital project, not as part of the.
Correct.
road.
There is a proposed line item under capital for a city standard gateway sign at Richardson Street and East Potts. We're trying to be very specific about the wording in our capital line items.
Okay.
And, that is a designated land area where we have space. There's not a safety concern.
We own it.
We own it. I've thought about other options. It would require trying to acquire property from commercial landowners. Of course, we've thought about it with the 285 bridge replacement project. That would be an opportunity for that gateway signage on the bridges. We're continuing to look for those opportunities, but there's only so much available land.
Well, if Stone Mountain annexes up to that, we can share it with them.
So where I was gonna go with a question, which you just somewhat answered, in the city standard guidebook, do we have other areas that have been recommended, or is it just about what we own?
No, the guidebook pretty much looked at every single gateway, right? I mean, we have the City of Tucker city limit signs that we've replaced with Public Works. They're the new welcome home. Those are your standard, street signs, like your stop sign. Of course, we call for larger monument style signs at all of our gateways, but that was just identifying gateways. It didn't actually identify parcels or right of way where we could put those structures. And so we chose to just recommend one. We went with a place where we already own the land. We wouldn't have to do any acquisition. It wouldn't be a right of way issue to worry about liability. And so that's how we came up with this proposal. But staff is happy to work on any other locations.
I just wanted to get a little bit clarity. I need to go back and look at the other gateway areas. I don't know that I have them completely off the top of my head. And yet, if we decide as council to move forward to do at least one a year, it's going to take us a few more years to get it all covered. So
Yeah.
we've got to take us, I agree that we should at least do one a year.
Yeah, I think Dunwoody did all of theirs at one time for $1 million. It was 20 some signs, I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm actually really glad for the clarification because I asked about that in the briefing. So now to understand, it's kind of like the whole grant conversation. It's like opportunity, the factors are in place, all that stuff. So, because I did pull up all the locations, and we have a lot, like every street that enters the city of Tucker basically has an opportunity. So thank you for clarifying that. And then my question is, if we were to go have it there, because there are different types of gateway signs, like what would be the gateway sign that potentially, because there's really small ones, and then there's like the really big one at Lawrenceville Highway.
Yeah, staff's recommendation is to do the same sign that we did at Lawrenceville Highway in Montreal.
Okay.
Because we have a good bit of land, we can do the full-size monument sign, and we can also do a lot of additional landscaping enhancements like we've done at Lawrenceville and Montreal.
Gotcha.
So it would not only be the signage to welcome you in, but also the enhanced landscaping outside of the standard streetscape landscaping.
Gotcha. Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
and it does, it pretty much calls for one at every single city or street that goes into the city.
Yeah.
But Richardson and East Ponce is one of those stops.
Yep.
Let me ask this, I drive I drive down there all the time, right? But is the path on that side or does it switch over when we get to that point?
It's not on
It's
that
not- it
side, but we
switches
do have
over the
a
other
wide
side.
sidewalk that goes in front of
Okay.
it and then down the new Richardson Street.
Because there is a focus coming up with DeKalb and that whole East Ponce corridor of the path with maybe some beautification and those types of things. So Commissioner Terry's looking at that with some other groups. So I just didn't know if that would, you know, you have that there with other beautification coming along that area. They're looking at little pocket parks and different things, right? So they're in the early stages of talking about that. So that could be complementary, even though the path is across the way, it's still right there, like you said, with the sidewalks. I don't know. Yeah, and there's a bus stop over there.
I just wanted to also clarify, so, because we've kind of gone back from the whole CIP to capital projects in this year. And so when you were first bringing this up, I thought we were talking about having it in the CIP. So to Kara's point, I think having some sort of policy that is clear that we want, I don't think us negotiating every year about which place in the city that a gateway sign is the right use of our time, just to be completely honest, because we should be able to say, we believe that key gateways need signage and we'd like it to be done in 3 years or whatever and put that in the CIP and then work on the details of like where the location is. So because like, I think we need some in District 3. I've brought that up numerous times. I'm not going to like duke it out though for this year versus a different year, but I do think like it should be a priority for, again, it shouldn't be district by district, for us as a city to be clear about where our boundaries are. And you should know that there is a difference when you come into the city of Tucker than when you're not in the city of Tucker. I think it ties into some of the other things that we haven't gotten to yet, and I don't know if we will, but some of our other plans, the design of some of those things like L29 are meant to be, there's something distinct about you being in Tucker on this thing than when you are on Lawrenceville Highway in Gwinnett County or, you know, the other direction. And so to me, those pieces all go together, gateways go together. How are we making, and this maybe that's the naming convention, but I would just like us to have on the broader CIP a little bit more, I just said broad again, but broader definition so that we're like, we are committing dollars to these types of projects, but then we have a little bit of flex then on the specific details. You know, in some cases that's not going to work, but in some cases I think it will. And gateway signage is one where I'm like, okay, let's pass the policy, whatever we need to do to say, okay, we need to make sure that like key corners have a gateway sign and it's going to cost, we'll figure out what it costs and then that'll decide, is it a monument sign or is it a smaller?
Yeah, and we've also requested money for the downtown arch to go in downtown. That's also from the city standard guidebook. So that would be a separate project that we've requested funding for from the guidebook.
So I'm hearing two things. I'm hearing one thing is, and I agree that we need to have an overarching plan for this year we're doing this gateway sign. This year we're doing this. We're going to hit these. Maybe we can get the smaller signs and, you know, what are the priority corners? We think about annexation and those types of things, right? So I'm hearing that. And then I'm hearing you say in the CIP, finance would prefer us to say, we're going to do this sign in this spot. Or could we say one gateway sign, keep that line item budget in there, although it might increase because we might not own the property, right? So one gateway sign here may cost more money because we've got to get property and we've got to work with a property owner. Whereas this one was put in there to say, hey, we did the one at Lawrenceville Highway because we owned the property, looks great, it's a great gateway. let's knock out another big one because we own the property, get it done, and then you were gonna look for others, correct? Was that your thought process?
Yes, we would love to keep working on more and more. Like I said, I have ideas of other corners and parcels, but again, it acquires acquisition and all that kind of stuff. So we saw an opportunity as we were finishing the Richardson Street project. Again, the Milton lawsuit was still ongoing at that time, so we knew we were safe to do that, and so that's how we made that proposal.
So, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was gonna say that does kind of feed into where I wanted to take you on that was that overarching relative policy about what we're gonna do, especially on those little things that as a council, yes, we're going to put in some type of gateway sign per year. We'll just say we're putting in one a year, whatever that relative policy wants to be, because then I think that is a better just overall programming effort for the council is that then you don't have to sit there and try to look at a map to say, okay, well, let me see what street this is, and so on and so forth. It just makes it a little bit easier, and it does give a little bit of flexibility at that particular point. But I think it's good for us to, and like I said, these are changes in how we've overall thought as far as capital and how we do a lot of these things. So I think just really still good to go through some of the conversation, just because they're not things that I think we've typically done here. So I think it's good to go through those conversations just so everybody sees that thought process and the why to it. Because I mean, I tell you every process that I've seen out there in the world, but you just at that point believe in me. But you got to really be able to work through that, and as a group, be able to know that for yourself. So I think to Councilwoman Weaver's point, then that would probably be what we want to really look at. And like I said, that's not necessarily a decision that has to happen absolute today to say we're going to do one or whatever the number is today, because we already have that one budgeted. But just then, as we are kind of progressing throughout the course of the year, that'd be something to still think about to say, okay, well, do we want to do 5 a year, or whenever funds come available, do we want to do 20 like Dunwoody and just knock them all out, just to say. So I mean, there could be opportunity there, but those would just be some continued conversations in how we approach that.
Oh, also note that the Tucker North Lake CID is coming up with an LCI study as well. So signage and those types of things will probably be a part of that. And then if something happens in November, right, we can be a little bit more strategic in where in those areas that we're putting those signs there, and that, because I go to those portions too, right? So that section, we want to make sure we're working hand in hand with them for that North Lake study.
Yeah, and just the other thing I would point out, I know we've talked a lot about city gateway signs. I wanted to call out the retrofit of the park signs. That was something that was also stressed during the city standard guidebook, and I believe Parks has a separate request for that funding for the actual retrofit of our existing park signs to address the wood issue and the visibility issue. I just
saw
didn't
that.
wanna
That's-
not talk about those important signs as well.
Yeah, those are very important. All right. So with this, I'm going to ask, because you've made good points. It's in the CIP. I can take unofficial votes. I got approval from Ted. So with that, are we good with leaving the Richardson Street called out in the CIP, right? And then saying we need a plan of gateway signs and cost and, recommendations of, you're the expert, come to us and say, okay, in this section, we're thinking about this kind, and in this section, we're thinking about this kind, because you're working on what land is available, and then come back and we can have a work session on that, right? Because we don't, like we said, we don't want to be in the weeds on those signs. Okay, yes.
So my one concern with that is something happens. I don't know what it is. And we can't do the sign in this specific place that we've named. By naming it that, because I feel like this has happened with some of these other projects, does that remove the flexibility to in the same year? So again, I don't know what happens on Richardson, but like someone else is like, oh, I want to give this land to the city, right? And then at the Richardson thing, something has happened where we can't proceed. I don't want us naming it in the CIP to tie our hands from doing anything. And so it's like, oh, well, we've named it as Richardson Street, but it couldn't happen. So it's just going to get pushed down for like 2 more years versus like that's my, like, I don't know if I'm making sense, but I'm just don't,
So
if naming it Richardson keeps us from moving.
go ahead.
It would not. I mean, I know we do, we want named projects so that it's very clear what we're going to be doing. But if it comes to a place where like we can't actually do that project, we should be coming back to council and asking what we should be doing with those funds. If that means another, yes, yeah.
Yeah, there's no law that says we can't, but it's a good point. But there's no law that says we can't go back and say, it's not working here. Can we move it there? Right? Okay.
Yeah, I think I would feel a little bit more comfortable with like naming if we were to sit down and kind of break down all of the possible signages and options, maybe, 500,000, maybe we can break it up into 3 different ones. Just trying to, maximize our money here and get the most amount of eyes on our signage, right? Because that's kind of the whole point of it. If we could sit down again, determine what are we trying to achieve with these with these signs, not just beautifications, maybe if it's traffic count at a certain place. I think I would feel a little bit better. The Richardson one, I know opportunity is always good to capitalize on, but I don't know, is it the right time to capitalize on this opportunity, right? We just did a lot of improvements in this area over the last like 3-4 years. Is it worthwhile for us to look at other sections of the city that might need a little bit more love at this point?
I think you make a good point. We just spent a lot of money there. So why not say, welcome to Tucker? I think you just made a really good point to say, we've done all this and this is Tucker. I don't know.
Well, I think part of the question too, though, is like, I'm supportive of it, but I haven't looked at the details. And can we say welcome to Tucker for when we're already looking at the CIP going, there's things that aren't going to make this cut? Like, it's so that's the point. Like, does it have, like, is it the monument sign or is it something slightly like more affordable that frees up us getting something else that can get going at the same, at the same time? So needing to highlight it, but I don't know the scale. So I'm like,
Yeah.
Okay. I get all of this. Again, this is why sometimes things don't move because we're so, as council, in the weeds. I get it. So let's do this. Can we put it down as gateway sign? Keep that amount of money in there. Right?
Mhm.
But I also want to make sure everybody's good with that. I don't know. So choice 1, let me just see, show of hands. Choice 1, we keep it in as Richardson, and you would still have to bring it to us, right? With contract and all of that type of thing.
Oh yeah,
Right.
we're gonna have to go out and get it designed and engineered, then there'll be
Yeah.
a contract for construction, several steps.
Okay, Eric,
The specific gateway sign is actually budgeted in the CIP in
Yeah.
2031, just so it's not in 27 itself.
oh, so why are we talking
So,
about this?
because we wanted to make sure we had a plan. We wanted to know.
Okay.
Because there was a lot of questions during the briefings of
Okay.
what is the actual plan? So
You should have
Yep.
said that 15 minutes ago.
I still think it was a good conversation to have.
Yeah,
But
This conversation to have.
I'd say about 3 minutes ago, I should have said something, but then Ben's comment kind of triggered me like you guys did not.
Yeah, you're good. I forgot.
Yeah.
So
So-
it's in the CIP for further out, right? For even design? I forgot my book.
Yeah, I mean, I think I initially requested it for 27, but it got pushed back. We kept the arch in downtown, I think instead, these little projects only go so far in terms of reallocating funds. But yeah, so this would
keep
be
it where it is because it's 37 or whatever. 31, I'll be dead. All right, go ahead. So next. All right. Okay, go ahead. They're good. So is everybody good to leave it in there where it is?
Sure.
But we've had a great discussion on gateway sign location. And so what we need to do, did you guys hear all that? It's further out. But we had a great discussion on gateway sign location. So that is a charge to say, look at that to see where we could move beautification dollars, right? No, Courtney says no.
I was, the second question of, do you want signage money in every year in the CIP? Before 31? Or are we just gonna wait until 31?
Well, this is what we were looking at, which is there's also the 500,000 is in this year for Richardson Street. So that's why we were
We're a little confused.
That,
because
yeah, that
the
is
city
the
stopped-
acquisition.
There's 150.
I just remembered what.
Yeah,
that
that's not for a
that's fine.
sign, that's for acquisition.
Yep, that's acquisition of
All
a
the stuff,
particular property.
the money, money, money. Okay, so it's not about the gateway. Yeah, that would be a very, very nice gateway sign.
And just
That's
keep
what
in,
I thought.
Yeah, no, that's for the land,
and do just keep in mind, even though that is saying it's in 31, again, we do revisit the CIP yearly. So there could be opportunity to where if something shifts, because I know with the next conversation we're about to get into, maybe there's a shift, that there's opportunity in more current years. Okay, so just keep that in mind too. Okay.
but you do have signage in there for downtown. Not gateway signs, but
Yeah, we put money in or requested money for the downtown arch that's in the city standard guidebook, that we'll look at further with the downtown master plan and also the kind of East Alley improvement project that we've also talked about.
so if we had this discussion that said we'd like some kind of gateway sign every year, we need to look at a plan. We need to look at what does that look like? What are the specifics? And then how much needs to be budgeted each year? So you got that? All right, excellent. Thank you.
All right, so
All
very,
right.
very worthwhile conversation, and that leads us into with future funding of how we want to view how we do prioritize, because I know we've had a couple retreats, and we have talked about priorities, of course, but yeah, and we talked about, I think it was mentioned earlier, that we are sort of locked into a lot of road projects right now versus trails being a little bit more of what the general consensus of a priority was. So we wanted to have a conversation, and Eric will kind of get us going with this of talking about specifically road projects versus trail projects as we're looking to future allocations.
Yes, so the first one is the Tucker North Lake Trail, the timing of it. We had multiple comments during briefings of like being able to expedite it if we wanted to focus more money on that. One, we do have a couple of grant applications out, which we do not account for on the revenue side, which increased revenue for that could increase the expenses each year. But really, we've had multiple comments about other trails being funded as well. But the reality is we are at a point with so many road projects working right now in the works that are going into construction, a lot that have big dollar grant money on them as well. As we said earlier, we don't want to upset GDOT if we have received a grant. But this conversation is kind of to drive that, like, if there's really any projects that we would like to on the roadside that maybe don't have grants, maybe we'd want to focus more of that money towards trails earlier than what we are right now in this CIP that we presented to you. Have that kind of conversation.
And you called out these three because these three were ones that were discussed in more than one briefing. I just want to get clarity for
Yep.
everybody on that
Yes,
as
and
well.
I would say that the two bottom ones might be a little bit easier conversations. One, the Hugh Hall Rosser timing of the design to construction had multiple people, because we're asking for the remaining construction budget. Some people didn't know we were on this design like being done. Design is not done yet. Before we go to bid, that design would come back. Ken would bring that design back to be reviewed by you during a work session.
Which work session is it coming up, Ken? Yeah, I thought so.
But with it being a project that we wanted to move forward with and safety behind it, we had to budget for it now if we wanted to continue with that. So that's also one that does not have grant money currently on it as well. But I had multiple conversations in those briefings about when did we get to the construction phase of it, but we're not there yet. We're still working through the design. But make sure if there's any questions for Ken, other than when that's coming back, we could at least have those questions answered here.
Does anybody have questions for Ken on that project right now? Just from a high level is concerned with budget, not specifics on the design, because that's coming back to us.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, and I was going to actually speak about this even when we were talking about gateway signs, the timing. That's one of the things that I know we talked about in our budget briefing. Just, I think in the past, where I feel like we are really correcting, and I'm happy about, is that money would languish, funds would languish for a project that could not get off the ground for whatever reason. So, you know, obviously our community wants to see this project go forward, the people that are impacted directly around that. However, I also want to make sure that that money is not just languishing if there is funds set aside for it to move it forward in a timely fashion. So one of the things that I think I would certainly like to really dig in more, because I mean, I will email you guys or I'll ask you in passing, like, what is the timing on that? It's really hard to keep it together sometimes because we're asking, you know, in passing or whatnot. But just really digging into like the actual timeline on it so that particularly in a year like this year where we really are, you know, it's a lean year and we're having to make tough decisions as a council about what our prior, you know, capital project priority is.
This will probably be it moving forward. We've right-sized, remember, the budget. Now with those ARPA funds gone, this is normal budgeting process. We've all been lucky. So this will probably be kind of budgeting process moving forward.
And I think that's, I mean, I definitely want to make sure that, yeah, what Ann said, because I absolutely believe that that's what you guys are honing in on. So I'm kind of more, I'm really glad for that because I think it helps us make our decision better up here, right? But just putting a pin on that and saying, like, in this particular project, my understanding is that this thing is that we will be able to get this thing accomplished in this next fiscal year, correct? We'll be able to get it fully constructed or whatever. The funds will be allocated and moving forward because that to me is really important. You know, even for a project that's in District 1 that is my district, I want to make sure that money is not languishing, if I'm making myself clear. Yeah.
I'll defer to Ken on possibility of completion of that project.
Real snapshot of where exactly we are with the project, like where we are with the design work. Is that stage fully funded? And then where because as my understanding is we're not totally clear on what the construction options could be on the project. So the full scope of it, as well as what monies are available for this project.
Yes, so the design is fully funded. It's under contract with Pond. We're saying it's roughly 30% complete with design. We held a public information meeting, a couple of months ago. Got some really good input from the citizens. There were a couple of suggestions. And what we want to do is come back to you next month, let you know what we heard from the public meeting, give you a summary of that, and give you a couple of options to look at. And hopefully we'll settle on one of those options and move forward with completing that design. There will be some right-of-way or easements required. So, you know, give 2 or 3 months for that acquisition. And Yeah, and then we'll be ready to construct it. But it kind of depends on where we go with the direction next month. But our plan would be definitely to construct it next fiscal year.
This fiscal, well, yeah, FY 27, right? The one we're discussing. Okay. Roger, any questions on that? Comment?
No, I've been speaking to Ken, and I know Virginia has as well all along, and definitely aware, given the number of collisions at this area, that this is a very necessary project. So I'm glad we're going to get it finalized and underway in fiscal 27.
All right.
So I think it would help us as a council to, when things are being presented to us, be really clear about what we mean. And the list you gave us, and I know I had brought this up in the meeting as well. The way we define what under design means and what approved design means. So, I mean, just to be frank, when I voted for the design for U-Haul, I thought I was voting for the design. I didn't know I was voting for $1.3 million to construct it, because I thought we were getting more of a feasibility assessment to understand what actually was needed there. So I was one of the ones who was surprised to see that in the capital budget, because I believe very strongly, I said this earlier, there are a lot of things that haven't been done that if we put the money towards it, we could get it done. Like Old Norcross Road, sidewalks that I can't seem to find on this list. But I think in our meeting, it had been pushed out even another year. So, so I think like it would help all of us to be clear, because there are other things that say still under design, that are in all different stages of what that design even means. And so, and we've had this conversation in the past with other projects, just because it's designed doesn't mean that it hasn't always meant that it's supposed to move forward. And we've even had conversations about, well, we need to have a little more information to be able to assess what it would cost and what it would take. And, you know, I think we need more phasing of projects, so very clear, smaller phases that can be completed. So we can get something done, but not all of it. And so to the point about, you know, the Moon Street and Brockett Road and the railroad, also a safety issue, also, you know, but also should be, in my opinion, connected to the Tucker North Lake Trail project, right? So we've really been on this like, oh, we have to plan it fully and buy everything fully before we can start anything. And I do wonder, especially on trail projects, if there are ways that we could look at, we want to do the whole thing. If we can't do the whole thing for 6 or 10 years, what can we do in 1 or 2 years that has some traction? I'm, you know, really disappointed in South Fork Peachtree Creek not being even planned for several years out, because that to me is like a transformational project. That is a town green type project. And so pushing it out when we have money now, I worry that that delays our transformation. And that's when I mentioned the economic growth piece, of us taking a stable approach to economic growth instead of what's transformational. So anything that we say we want done in a year, if we put the money behind it, can get done, or maybe it's 18 months, but we haven't done that with a lot of these projects. And so I'm just gonna say, I didn't know I was voting for construction in next fiscal year when I voted for the design.
Well, you necessarily won't. You're doing that now, right?
Yeah, moving forward, we do want the full project budgeted, or like the full scope included in the CIP request to start with, so that when we're going through design and we have to update what that construction is. Otherwise, if we're just going to budget design this year, but then if we're in a 10-year CIP because of the money, the limited funds that we have, you're doing design this year, and at some point when we get this regulated and we're kind of in a system that's working for us, the new requests are all going to be at the end of the CIP. So if we're doing designs this year, if you only want to do a design and then vote on construction afterwards, you're not going to be like consistently moving into that next phase.
I understand that. I'm saying we've used design to encompass lots and lots of things, not design for construction. So if we need to add terminology that says feasibility assessment, that because we've used design as feasibility assessment. And so that's what I'm saying is like there are things where we might want to do it if we can fit it in the budget, but if it's gonna keep us from doing other things, maybe we don't. So that's all I'm asking for is just more types of terminology than just design is all.
Old Norcross sidewalks, it's not budget. It's getting that pole moved, correct? We're getting
The
the,
Norcross Road sidewalk has been budgeted, so the money is there in theory, depending on what the
been there.
construction comes in at.
what does in theory mean?
I mean,
It's
we
there.
can't predict how much the construction is, but we've budgeted, I think, 700 and something $1,000. So the money should be there unless the construction comes in something crazy.
But what's holding it up is there's a logistical
Utility.
situation. It's not us, right?
It's had a number of issues, but right now it's a utility relocation issue. Then it's, I guess 700, I thought it was more like 780, but it's going to come back to you as a contract to award once we put it out to bid.
So
Same,
but it's in the budget. It's in this
it's
year's
in the
budget
budget,
still.
right? Same thing that you're going to hear on Rosso Road from Ken about where to proceed on the design work, engineering. Maybe that's the better way. This isn't a feasibility study. This is hard engineering of plans a contractor can use. And then, of course, you'll have when the bid, whatever engineering you decide to approve with, when that comes back, awarding the bid. So there is other opportunities, right?
Eric,
Council.
what you were gonna say something? You forgot.
I may have lost my track of thought,
Sorry.
but yes, Old Norcross is previously budgeted in fiscal year 26. And specifically to this Rosser Road, to the design, I actually think I was kind of surprised it was on there as well. This one came out of one of those generic improvement line items, right? Which is why I'm not a big fan of the generic line items, because I want to know what the whole project is up front. Because when we come to you, we can say we have this entire budget, or it's at least built out in the CIP, where we started this design without naming this project up front. We did come to you for that design contract. Some of the leftover money in there could be used for construction because it's something you voted on to pass, and we want to be able to construct items that we do design. This is just fulfilling the rest of that. So yes, we need to do a better job when we're coming to you for a design. If we continue with generic line items to say, hey, it came from this generic line item, there may not be construction for it. We might have to use some of this generic line for the construction, and we can ask for more later. We do need to be more clear on that side too, but that is why I'm not a big fan of the generic line items, because it's hard for me to track alone too.
And you're moving everybody away from that.
I'm trying to, yes. And
Everybody's moving away from that, right? Yay. All
to the
right.
best of our ability.
And everybody's moving away from
I will
that.
add, like, items like those gateway signs might be a little bit easier to discuss in a meeting when we already have a plan for it. When you have just generic, like, hey, this is money because we had a study that gave us 45 projects to do that cost $150 million. And we come back with one suggestion for a design when we had 40 projects. It's hard for me to track and hard for you guys to track. If I can't track it, there's no way any of you can track it. Like that's why I'm not a big fan of them. So this is a little bit of like the old way of budgeting that has maybe confused all of us. So.
Yes, sir.
And I think the thought in the past had been like with the Hugh Howell, looking at it like we're doing a study for this area. We want to also be able to fund some improvements moving forward. So I don't think conceptually that's bad, because it's like shows that we're working on feasibility and then we're going into projects. But of course, we're growing up now and we need to be more discreet. And this is what Eric said is how we'll be moving forward.
All right.
So I want to say I thought that during my briefing a week ago, which was very, very good to just get you to say, hey, this is the project under construction. And I've gone through and put more notes and be happy to share, but I do think it's a good way to extract the CIP so we understand a little bit more. And I also think, I want to just go back to something. I totally agree with Alexis that I thought I was also approving design. I did not know we were going to move forward with a huge project and add it to the next year. And so I think it would be helpful also for somehow moving forward if when we get into these construction projects, since we're doing a lot of really great discussion in our second meetings, working sessions, to maybe have some more updates on those projects moving forward, so we're not so surprised. I
That's
think
fair.
that's really important. And, you know, transparency, of course, to the public is important, but also to make sure that we know what's going on. When I get a list like this, you know, the CIP list, which I have a ton of different markings, I have questions. And so, and I do this every budget cycle, right? That's what you do, is to make sure that you know what's happening and how much it costs. And so when things get put on this, I think that's the other thing that I'm really struggling with. It's happened the last few years. There'll be surprises that are just, okay, well, where did that come from? And why is that a priority? Maybe it's another council member who wants that to happen. But I'd like to know more specifics. And when we get into this Hugh Howe improvements that's down on the list, that's got $1 million for 28, I was like, oh, okay, but I thought we were doing that up there. There's Hugh Howell. And then, oh, there's a Hugh Howell at Rosser. And so I just was surprised to see that number there. And I didn't, and then I was told that it came out of a discussion that we did a study, and then we put money in from that for that discussion with the study. And then I'm thinking, well, okay, well, that's interesting because we have some other studies that didn't really get a lot of funding at that level. So I was just curious about how that works.
Well, come to that in a second. You bring up a good point. We also had the North-South Connector study where we've done a ton of projects out of that moved pretty quickly too, Brockett Road and some others. So probably similar due to safety. So I want to make sure we're looking at that holistically again. So explain to us all of those line items.
You that the transportation trail plan's coming. We now have more safety issues. Some of them have bumped up. So I totally understand that, but I'm just curious how this works on the CIP. And maybe we need to kind of just explore that.
Yes, so we did build this. So what we had last year, I'm always going to defer to the department head on what they're requesting in year over year. Obviously, I had a little bit of input of pushing things out because of the money available at the bottom of that CIP. Each column has what fund balance is left over. Trying not to go negative. That's why we're trying to stay balanced. So yes, that Hugh Hall improvement, I think had that in there last year. And could it have been moved? Probably. It is actually the same generic line item that the Hugh Howell Rosser Road came out of as well. So I've asked for more information on that one as well. I think by the time I got to that, we were already coming to present it to you all. And I don't have that much more information on what projects might come out of it because it's that one of those generic line items. It might have been 1.5 in each line. I might have cut something in there just to afford it. I know safety is important, so we left it in there because safety is important to all of us, obviously. But really, I'm deferring to Ken if Ken wants to share what his plans are for that money and what he is planning on doing with that I will let him share.
Can I actually speak before that? Because I think that we all have projects all over the city that probably generated from certainly plans, but also from community input. Like we're bringing these conversations to staff to talk about. We're out there talking in the community and bringing those conversations.
You are, but here's the caveat again. Remember, this year, those things are going through city manager and should not be the direct conversation
Sure,
with
but
staff.
I mean, that's why I said staff, because I've talked to John and talked to, Eric and Derek. And so, but I think that it comes back to, in my opinion, it comes back to we're having these tough conversations because we have to prioritize. We cannot do it all. We have to find a way to partner together to try to, and hopefully it won't always be like this, but to partner together in order to try to diversify what the community is asking us to work on. And I understand in some of my conversations, particularly a very short conversation that we had about trails, like, I want to get trails done. We've got a trail going down Hugh Hall Road that is stopped. I want to see the North Lake Trail get done. I want to get the South Fork Peachtree Trail. But we also have, as staff has been talking about, we've got a lot of, we're getting a lot done, but we also have been asking staff to work on a lot of transportation projects, 2 roundabouts. We're, in this CIP alone, I believe we're looking at North Lake Parkway, Lawrenceville Highway. We've had a lot that we have been working on in a short amount of time. So I don't know, I'm really trying to talk holistically, but what I wanted to say is, as the person who is coming to talk about what folks in District 1 are asking for, they want trails, but they also, I had 4 people taking a left in front of me today on Rosser Road. That is like, and there was like 8 cars in line today because I don't know what was going on today. All these people were coming up to take a left on Hugh Hall Road. I'm watching every car put their life on the line to pull out into an illegal left. There's not a lane there for them to pull into. So it's that kind of stuff. And I know we are all passionate about the things that we want to see done. I respect all of that from everybody up here. But it's hard because what do we have, like $2.9 million in like for roads? And we're having to make some really tough decisions up here. But, I do think that, and I appreciate the conversation about the timing of it and Eric trying to explain it, because to me, and I know that I've been focused on this project, I never understood this project to be designed $1.3 million for design. I never understood that. There's a lot in the line item, and I know we're talking about the general, but it actually does say right-of-way utility construction in that line item. I don't know. Anyway, I'll hold my comments.
I just build off of what Derek said earlier too, is that what you're approving when you approve the budget is what we're going to spend in fiscal year 27. Like, that's the budget, such that the finance department and, operations, and we can move forward. Everything outside that, once you get to fiscal year 28's CIP, that is aspirational, and really important for us, right? Really important as we balance all these difficult priorities that we have, but ultimately aspirational. So I think it's important to just keep that caveat in mind.
Okay, so we're going to come back to this. We've had discussion on this, the timing, design to construct, right? Let's move on to Moon Street timing. That's still on our list. We've had a little explanation there. It's still up for discussion. We've not solved anything there, but these were projects that we were saying to you all, we're planting the seeds of roads versus trails. We could move money from every road project right now, sidewalk project that doesn't have the grants, and throw it at trails. We could do it. There's nothing stopping us on that, right? We could do it.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what this discussion is. So let's talk Moon Street timing came up in more than one. So let's talk about what are we talking about there?
A lot of this was about the design coming back. I know there was questions or comments during the last time the design was brought to you all. So there's multiple comments about when you will see it again and that. So we just wanted to make sure you all.
And I think you got to set the stage for where we are with the project.
Yeah, where are we with the project, Ken?
Okay, so this one I'm calling Lawrenceville Highway at Brockett Road, to be clear, and it does go over to the railroad track and Moon Street, but to name the project to be consistent, it's Lawrenceville Highway at Brockett Road. The project's under design, and the design has been funded. We had a public hearing, a public meeting on the project. Again, we got some good input. We had the consultant come to you and present this one as well as the Lawrenceville Highway at North Lake Parkway, those two together. Got some good feedback from council, and the consultant is currently working on plan revisions. We've submitted the plans to CSX Railroad for their review. We had to pay them up front because they want their review fees up front, so we've done that. There's discussion about the Tucker North Lake Trail that has been incorporated into that improvement. We're not asking for construction money in this budget. I think we've pushed that to 2029 maybe. And the reason is simply because we're not going to be ready, because we've got to get GDOT approval and we have to get railroad approval, and that's just going to take a little time.
So you don't think there's any pushing them to say, hey, we've got this money for this trail. The trail is coming this way. We couldn't push on CSX or GDOT to move that up?
Yeah, I mean, we could try. I still don't realistically think that we can construct in this upcoming fiscal year. And as we've talked
Well,
about.
I wouldn't assume this fiscal year, but I'm
But
thinking
hopefully
even the next year.
Oh, yeah, I think I had initially put it in 28, and then in order to balance things, you pushed it out another year.
It's actually in 30 was the first year we could afford it with all the other projects that are on the CIP.
Okay. Hold on, everybody. Give me a second, all right? I don't need the glaring, just give me a second. All right, so, Ken. With the Tucker North Lake Trail, if we shifted money, right? A lot of people are saying, let's just say this, we shift money to start to build that. Maybe it's in phases, right? It's in phases over and we try to get it across fellowship and we're working with the railroad on that. And we get here. Do you think the railroad would push up time? I know we met with Craig Camuso. I have to get that report out to council to talk about timing of these types of things too. He's our government affairs person. Is that possible? And if it is, we can shift it, correct? Derek and Eric, if we could get that moving faster, we could move it up and then something else would move back, correct?
Yes, we could.
Okay. Okay. Councilman, you were going to say something.
Yeah, so I just recently spoke to a business that opened up along the railroad. They told me that each time that we go in for a review, it was $20,000, and the CSX timeline for review was 9 months. Is that kind of similar to what we're dealing with as a government also?
No, I don't think it'll be 9 months. I think probably 3 months is probably more likely.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so you just said 3 months, but then we were saying it was being held up.
Well, yeah, for their review, and there will be some easements required.
Okay.
And then, I mean, that's just their review, and then there's the permitting, so. Yeah, I mean, we can throw all the money we want to at it, but I don't think we'll be.
No, not this year.
This year. Next year?
Maybe next
potentially,
year.
Yes.
If it becomes a priority, then maybe next year. Okay. Yes.
So I appreciate everybody kind of paying close attention to this. When you get into the trail and transportation plan that we received that's been updated, and you get into the different tables, I guess, of reporting, this is really one of those top intersections up for safety and operation. It's ranked in the top 3 or 4. I just want to say that to everybody. And I know we're going to review that in the coming months, so I'm just going to pause on that. But I do think it needs some attention.
Is there a possibility, someone mentioned tonight in public comment, I'm sorry, I'm breaking my rule. I'm going to get in the weeds in that for a second. Short term, adjusting the lights before we make any of these other improvements, could that be done? there to time the lights better now, short term? Because that seems to be the biggest safety problem is the timing of the lights versus all this extra stuff that we want to do. So can we look at doing the timing of the lights to short term that while we're waiting for everything else and to build it into the trail? Okay. Thank you. I mean, that was mentioned tonight in public comment. Okay, here and then. Oh, I'm sorry, Amy. My God, look at you. You're so patient. I want to get to you. Can I, oh, Amy? Councilwoman.
Yeah, mine's
Go
quick.
ahead.
Thank you. I had asked about doing the timing of the lights separately from all the construction and was told that, first of all, it was not as easy and as inexpensive as it sounds. So it didn't actually make sense to separate it out.
Okay. Was that, okay. Also, I'm going
I
to say
think
again.
I think it was Ishri. I think Ishri was the one who I
Well,
had
Ishri's
talked
over
to.
there hiding behind the podium or the pole, but he's saying yes. He's saying yes.
Yeah. Because I think there was like a whole box and yeah, I think it was not as easy as it sounded. It wasn't as inexpensive as it might have sounded, and it wasn't going to be as quick as we might envision it to be. So,
But maybe you were thinking about spacing and timing, not just timing of the light. So he's shaking his head yes, that he thought your question was spacing
okay.
and timing. So now this is just timing. This is why, I'm just going to say it again, y'all, conversations need to be had in these types of things. And I'm not saying yay or nay, but I'm just asking again, corralling these conversations. I appreciate staff when they get questions, they send it out to everybody with the answers. I think that is very helpful for all of us because somebody could be working on something over here and somebody else is working on this same thing. And then you learn, hey, that's a thing too. So I like that. So just let us know how that goes with the lights. All right.
So I have a proposal, which is if we're able to move Lawrenceville Highway at Brockett Road up into, if not fiscal 27, but fiscal 28, and we frame it as the entire intersection, not just the roads component, because trails are transportation too. And so it's a part of the North Lake Trail. The project becomes not, oh, North Lake Trail over here and the railroad over here, but it's, this is the intersection and we're looking at it and we've moved it to 28, which means we can start looking at grants. And Virginia came back talking about rail grants and how we can look at things. So it gives us an actual cross-departmental CIP project, which is, I think, where I would hope we would move even further towards, instead of it being broken down department by department, but instead, what's the holistic picture that helps us achieve multiple things that we're trying to do? So we're achieving infrastructure, we're achieving economic growth, and we're achieving like safety and community connectivity. So that might be one proposal, if there's a way to look at that and figure out a way to combine some of those things so that it fits under this. But it's on our plan so that we can start looking for money for it. So it's not.
Oh, she's already
pushed
looking
back.
for money for it.
Right. But we were just saying we're only going to be looking for money if it's in FY 27 and 28 when it came to grants. So that's what I'm saying. Like moving it up to meet that strategy would help move all of these things forward.
And she's also taking it out of turn and looking at all the rail projects. Good, right? We got a meeting this week, I think, to talk about this project. So that's great. All right. So Moon Street, you got a little bit more guidance on Moon Street? Eric's like, there goes my Jenga pieces falling down. I don't know about that. All right.
A little bit, but it's also a part of our new like CIP setup too of we have more than one person in the room when we're talking about projects. And it would be nice if at the beginning we knew there was a trail and a road project in one so we can plan for that and it could be more important. So yes, it's kind of like our new setup with the CIP team that we have.
The CIP team is working together on those types of things. So that's great. Okay. So now let's go back to that Tucker North Lake Trail timing, right? If we wanted to take some other projects off the table and throw money at it, what's the feasibility of that, Ken?
Well, So federal funding, we went down the path, so to speak, of federal funding for the Tucker North Lake Trail. So this was back in 2022. Council felt that that trail was a priority, and they have indicated recently that it's still a priority. So that's a good thing. So the great thing about federal funding is they generally they pay 80%, and then the local community has to pay 20%. The bad thing is there's so many environmental requirements, and they call it the PDP process, which is the plan development process. It takes a while, and depending on the project, it can take 5 or 6 years to get through that process. So that's where we are. We're trudging through that process, and we're getting close to final plans. So I'll just say on the engineering design, we were successful in getting 80% federal funding. It was a $2 million design because it's a very long project. So we have 1.6 million in federal funding on that. So that was a good thing. Subsequent to that, we applied for federal funding for right-of-way. Right-of-way is very expensive on this project. It's 50-something parcels. The right-of-way estimate was $9 million. We were successful in getting federal funding for right-of-way at 80%. So we expect to have right-of-way authorized by GDOT within the next couple of months.
What is, I
That
buy
means-
right away at work, but tell me about your right of being authorized by the federal folks. What does that mean?
That means you can go ahead and start your appraisals and start your
Okay.
titles and start your discussions with the property owners. We still need to, obviously still need to meet with them and have those discussions. You can't have those discussions until right-of-way is authorized. So
What is holding up the right of way authorization?
nothing's really holding it up. It's the process.
Nothing's holding it up.
No, we're
Okay.
within a couple of months of getting that authorized. So that's the right-of-way. And then you have the construction phase. Well, the construction is estimated at $20 million. Obviously, that's tough. So we said, well, let's break that down into phases. So the first phase would be from Town Green to Brockett Road, and that would include a bridge over Fellowship Road. The second phase would be from Brockett Road to North Lake Parkway, and the third phase would be North Lake Parkway all the way up to the mall. So that's kind of how we think it would be a logical way to phase the project. So we have applied for more federal funding for construction of what would be phase one to get us to Brockett Road. We estimate that at about $4.5 million. So we've got a couple of federal funding applications pending on that.
4.5 total, you think? Okay. Would it mess it up if we asked somebody if they wanted naming rights of the bridge over Fellowship to sponsor that? Okay.
I just want, let's say, like, can we get it across Brockett Road, not to Brockett Road? So we can.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have the.
So that first phase would get across Brockett? Or you would just go up to that one intersection?
It would go to the intersection, then you would cross them
Second
at the
phase.
intersection, sure.
But is that phase one or phase two, crossing that Moon Street intersection area?
Well, yeah, we're just not going to dump them into the intersection. It'll be a safe
Okay. Right.
crossing
No, I'm
across the intersection.
thinking the intersection, I'm thinking like stopping, on that left-hand side and then phase two. But we want to make sure we get across Brockett Road in phase one. Okay, that's good. And so remind me, if we threw, well, you're getting 80%, you got 80% from the feds, we've budgeted for right away. So we're good there for this year. No, for fiscal year 27. So right away is budgeted. you're gonna start in phase one, right? Those folks to get, because I think that would be a win there. I think we're gonna have it tougher as we move down to phase two. Although I know our folks gave you free easement already, right away. So your plan will be to start that acquisition, your right away, right there, right? Your acquisition from that phase one.
Yes, but as far as GDOT's concerned, they've funded all the right of way,
I know.
80%, but
But
certainly
you
our
could start
part-
there, get that done,
Party would-
and we could
yeah.
start construction maybe on that, right? Do you think this year we'll know if we get more federal dollars?
Yes, we should know this spring if we
Okay.
were successful.
Okay, if we threw, and I know right away is not gonna be easy to purchase, and we might have some condemnations and things like that, so, we're gonna budget for that. I'm just looking for ways that we could speed up at least that little section to get more folks excited about it too.
Yes, so, yeah, right away, we need to be aggressive with right of way acquisition.
Yes.
And when we need to acquire, and it's still gonna take a year, but we need,
But that first phase may not, there might not be as many, the railroad, we've talked to them
Right.
about it, right? So they,
we could, the problem is the current, the current, GDOT schedule is for fiscal year 29. So we're a couple of years away as far as GDOT's concerned. But if we get more federal funding, we could probably push that up a year.
we could say to them, hey, GDOT, we got more money, let's go. Okay, all right. So I think everybody hears that. I think it's contingent on a few of those other pieces because we do have to work with GDOT. But I think it's throwing as many land agents, whoever's going to go out to buy, those parcels, to throw as much as we can at that to get it done. Okay. Then,
If we were to be able to, get more money, would we be able to, start some of phase 2 and 3, maybe the land acquisition right away for those pieces? So once we get more funding to actually do construction, it's already there.
and they've already got the money for that, right? We've already got the right of way money. So,
Well-
yeah. So just keep
Hey.
right away, but I'm making sure we start on this end so we can buy, maybe construct while we're continuing to buy right away. Because I think I know where we're gonna hit a
Yeah.
issue. Does that, to talk it out, right? We didn't know all of this, so it's good to be reminded because there's a lot of stuff. So that's good. Everybody feel good about that? Okay. So it's not necessarily just throwing all that money towards it like we talk about, but there's other things that are impacting it. But if we have said, hey, let's rock and roll on that once we get it done, then we can move. We're having to do that at work too. We've got 65-mile transmission lines and we're having to phase it and work that process.
Ken, roughly how many parcels in that first phase right away would need to easements and acquisition?
Yeah, probably not that many. I don't recall right offhand. I think it's 50 something for the total project. I don't recall how much
I think that first one doesn't have
it's
as
not
many
that
as the
much,
others.
because part of it, you're actually in the right of way.
Yeah, we're already in the right of way. Okay, so we looked at that. Naming convention on projects, PB pools, peanut butter pools.
That's what we're diving into. But a little bit of that, and we've talked about this in some spots a little bit this evening, is just really how we're naming some of the projects. And I think we kind of touched on it in a couple spots. So I know with some projects that we had as far as the pools are concerned, there was a question of should that be natatorium or maybe aquatics, or how we're viewing those overall projects and how we're naming those, just to make sure that it's very clear for everybody, as well as the public, of what we're doing, and that we are also maybe not pigeonholing, I guess, ourselves into saying we're doing one thing. I know we have kind of talked about some of that just a little bit with some other areas. So I think kind of still broadly that holds true, that we can still name projects as we see fit, and really change those. But that was the basis of that specific discussion, was natatorium versus pools in this situation.
Okay. And so that was brought up more than once. So you're looking at, we don't know if it would be a natatorium. We don't know if it would be a pool. I'm not sure we're a natatorium community.
Mayor,
Yes.
sorry, one more thing.
Yes.
And
Go.
the PB was also a previously budgeted project at the rec center that we did not move forward with. And there was suggestions of changing the
Is
title,
that
the
word
name of
peanut
that.
butter?
So it's not peanut butter.
You threw me off with
But
peanut butter.
we want the direction from council
Okay,
as a whole.
so let's
say
start with
something.
pools. So instead of natural, can we call it aquatics? That way it's pool, that could also be other things. Is that what no?
And I think Council Weaver was gonna make a point to that, I believe.
Okay.
So let her do that first.
Well, I think this goes back to the conversation about the feasibility of the rec center. And are we talking about, is the natatorium, just so everybody's clear, the natatorium was one of those other things that was in the Parks Master Plan update that was at the top, but we never really were like, yep, we're definitely doing it or we're definitely not. We talked about that. Also, there's like a Henderson Park, there's kind of like a Henderson Park placeholder that's for whenever the plan is finished, whatever the recommendations are. And so all I was going to say is, I wonder if it's rather, I mean, I think aquatics is at least like a better step, but I also think there's probably, like if you could have like the Henderson Park, for example, also include the Yellow Trail, like all of the things that are kind of associated with that core, entity kind of be a part of that. So under the pools piece, we want to make sure that we have some budget for our other parks. I mean, that's kind of what I think is the idea behind it is we want to have capital for our parks outside of Henderson Park. We don't exactly know what they are going to be, but we want to make sure they're in the capital project somewhere. So I don't.
Fitzgerald has a listing. Of
Yeah. So I'm just thinking like maybe if there's flexibility to then either just, I don't know what it is, like name a pool fund, not a pool fund, a park fund or a park line item so that there can be some discretion. I'd rather be aquatics than nothing, but that's what I was trying to get to is like I was having a hard time looking at the budget because it's alphabetized, but there are like multiple things that fall into different departments but are kind of clustered together. And so the pools is a good example, but there are other parks things that kind of they touch multiple areas.
So I think what you guys are trying to get at is, here's a park, here's everything we want to do in that park, boom. Instead of keep coming back, right? So would that take that or no?
The reason I paused is because like some of our smaller parks, it might make sense for them to be like clustered together. So like, if Grace is doing, Montreal park planning, there might be other smaller parks that haven't gotten like the same amount of attention, and it might make sense for her to be looking at multiple of them at the same time. Or I know we had talked about like the distinction between when does it become a capital project versus when is it maintenance. And so having kind of like clarity on there's capital maintenance and then there's capital new. So yeah, I mean, I think it could be parks, but I don't think it needs to be every single park. So, that's just what I meant. But I just got nervous about more of the specificity on
Like
pools,
having
and we haven't
natatorium
talked
listed
about
there.
that like at all.
Some people might not know what that is. You don't? You know what a natatorium. Indoor pool facility. It's a fancy name. It means it's going to be more expensive. No, that's not what we're building at Henderson Park when we cut down all the trees. Not what we're doing. Okay. I'm going to have fun with that. Sorry. All right. Thank you for that. Now we go back to, tell me about PB. What do you want from us about PB? The word that shall never be said again.
Yes. Really,
Peanut butter.
the current name is not, pickleball is not going to happen at the rec center as of
That's right.
now. So we would like clarity on how we would maybe possibly rename that for if something like Henderson's master plan comes out saying pickleball could go there, like if we could have another naming mechanism. I know a couple of thoughts were Henderson amenities or just amenities kind of thing, just so that we don't have something out there that says this is for pickleball with the precise name when we're not going to do that project at this point. So
And that's just a smaller piece. Are you talking about the, because there was a small piece for that, but then there was a piece for stormwater and parking. So how are you looking at that? You weren't.
we could do it
Okay,
either
right.
way. We could do the whole thing, or we could leave some there for just the rec center parking and stormwater. We could go back to the design and see what we estimated.
I'm not asking to do that, but I'm just saying, hey,
It's up-
if St. Andrews shuts us out of the parking lot, we might have to have a plan B on parking there. Anyway.
Yeah, we can decide that now too.
It's
If
okay.
you want to, if you have direction on how you want us to reallocate that to either just the parking or putting it all at the, just in.
Henderson Park
or Henderson
amenities
amenities.
or park amenities.
Yep, yeah.
Mayor?
Yes.
Just to be clear here, I think what we're talking about, you all can correct me, everyone. But the roughly 2.2 million, right? So of that, of that previous project, when we were talking about it at the Tucker Recreation Center, roughly 600 was for the pickleball courts. The remaining amount was for stormwater and parking improvements.
Okay. So were you suggesting the whole 2.2 or the 600 or?
We're not suggesting anything. We're letting
Okay.
all of you decide on how we would like to reallocate those funds.
On the CIP that I'm looking at from 2 weeks ago, under Henderson Park amenities, that total is $1 million.
That is a separate request.
That's a
That
separate
was-
class.
that
We're talking
was-
about renaming the previous line item, 2.2 million that was allocated for Tucker Rec Center for pickleball parking and stormwater. Do we want to move that bucket of money and rename that Henderson Park amenities, knowing that we are looking to see, are we going to add more pickleball, more tennis, whatever over there, more courts in general?
I totally get that part of it. I just don't see it on the CIP. That's okay.
So Councilmember.
No, you're
Schroeder,
right.
That's a great question. As I understand it, not a finance expert here like these folks, but that was a previously funded capital project
Mhm.
from a previous earlier year. Hence, it's not showing up in the capital improvement
Yeah.
plan.
But the money's there.
Yeah, it would be in one of those previous years, which is fiscal year 26 amended amount. You'll see it in the line item in the Parks and Rec Department in the 321, I believe, fund.
Okay, go ahead.
Would it make more sense to make it a more generic parks? I mean, certainly I understand possibly there is that stormwater issue at the rec center, but then the rec center is sort of up in the air. Do we want to be planning any potential construction there without really understanding where that property might go? So do we want to have it just have a generic parks and recreation so that, because again, a lot of the conversations that we've been having the last several weeks and into tonight is best use of the funds and not have them languishing. So if we were to rename that, and I just want to say, we want to get pickleball courts in the city of Tucker. However, with that in mind, if we only need $500,000 or $600,000 in order to accomplish that, wouldn't it be better to have that like available to whatever our needs are rather than having it potentially sitting there for just, unless we're saying that we know that this $2.2 million would be able to be spent, yeah, again, part of our conversation, right? In Henderson Park with the plan that we're working on and all that in the next fiscal year. Well, that's one conversation. But if we don't really know, maybe it should be more of a generic term for Parks and Rec.
Amy,
Yes. Eric, I completely understand why you don't like generic names in budget line items, but we do have the master plan for Henderson Park coming in September. And so we don't know what it's going to be. And it could be a multi-year project, or honestly, it could be something that we could afford with some of this money. So I would love some kind of temporary holding name until we get to that master plan point, and then we could reevaluate, because I don't necessarily want to call it all Henderson Park, because I mean, we already have 800,000 for the Henderson Park Yellow Trail Connector. And I just think that's a lot of money to be saying Henderson Park. And it's not that I don't want Henderson Park to be better. It's just that we don't have the master plan yet. So we don't really know anything. So I'd love an appropriate temporary name that you would feel comfortable with, Eric, that would leave it in the parks realm, but isn't necessarily naming it for a specific park.
All right. Yes.
And to further that, actually, I mean, we have Lord Park sitting out there, and didn't we do some sort of, aren't we under design with some portion of Lord Park? So again, something that has, you know, a park that's sort of, sorry, the can's been kicked down the road. You know, if for some reason we, you know, have this fund sitting there and we get to the master plan in September, and then we're starting to push into the next fiscal year and all that stuff, there might be some opportunities to, you know, spread it around.
Okay.
I'm also wondering about agree with both council members. But I'm wondering about going back to the Parks Master Plan update, because there is an estimated cost of of all the projects that are recommended, just like there are in our other plans. And so it might make sense to just look at that and kind of pick out a couple of those, again, the higher level things, not the granular, and use that to sort of situate what we're talking about. Because I think some of those things are addressed. Again, I don't think the numbers are probably not right sized, but that might be a way to use work that's already been done to guide how we name. You might propose that we name some of these things that gets some more specifics without, and it's still towards the overall Parks Master Plan. So we're still saying we are committed to funding things out of this in some way.
Okay. Councilwoman.
I agree. I think it's all great. I think we need to be really smart until we get the plans back, because I am seeing that we have so much more usage. So we'll probably use the money across the board, no matter what. So, thank you.
Councilman? I know you want to say something. I'm looking at.
No, I mean, I'm just trying to decide. I get it. Just from what we know of the master plan and then like the requirements and scope that we're trying to achieve, and you look at the topography and like all the different types of projects that we'll need to fund, I think 2.2 million won't be that much in terms of all the projects that we'll need to get done. You know, if you just take a look at the parking situation, you're gonna have to level off, you're gonna have to do a lot of retaining walls, a lot of drainage, and that's not an easy area to build in. So I'm really for taking the money and putting other places in Lord Park, but I think Henderson would just get a lot more use out of those dollars and a lot more foot traffic. So I'm hesitant to make it just a general bucket where it can kind of be like chipped at.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I meant the pools and the line item. I meant all of the things we've been discussing.
Okay. I was going to say, take that court money, original court portion of that money, and put that in Henderson improvements, and then maybe take what's left and put that in a improvement item. What do you think, Roger?
I would take that original money. I think your idea is good, and Amy's idea to wait for the Henderson Park master plan. I was overlooking such an obvious thing, but I would add about, if I recall, it was 650,000, and I would add maybe 15% to that for price increases or any further design that needs to be done at Henderson.
What do you think about that? So you take the original, I think it was what, 600 you said?
I
Or
don't recall the
racket,
exact
racket
amount.
sports.
I can look
Yeah.
it up though. We can look up what that amount was and add a contingency to it to pull out like an exact amount for Henderson.
And put that in Henderson Park improvements. What are you thinking?
Right, like. Sorry, the pool and why we listed it in there is it would be for capital maintenance, like Alexa said, or that's what Weaver said. So I could see separating it into two different buckets between capital maintenance and capital new projects. Like in the master plans I've done, that's how the finished product of what we received. However, I could see how that could be very dangerous in projects getting pushed and pulled and moved up and it when you're not allocating for a specific project, right? Yeah, just lots of thoughts. It's a lot of good
conversation.
thinking points. Of course, we're gonna have conversations.
A debrief. You guys, I'm sure we'll have Eric. Go ahead.
Yeah, it sounds like we have a lot of value in waiting until the master plan is done. And I hear about putting in a generic line where it can get picked at and things can happen without it coming back to you all to decide where it's going to happen,
Mhm.
what's going to happen with that fund. So I'm comfortable putting it in a generic park amenity, not even pulling out the pickleball at this point. Because if we want to wait for the Henderson Park master plan to be done, I can put it in a generic line item and it will not be touched until we come back to you with a decision on how we.
Can I get a contract that says that? No, I'm just kidding.
This is being recorded right now, so
Okay.
yes. So my concern is the same.
I'm not worried about you.
Yeah. My concern was the same as Councilmember Wynn's, where like those generic line items don't have any specific plan to them. Conversations happen. Something feels like it's urgent. Let's find some money to do something right now because one person is saying something. We don't want that to happen. We want it to be a collective decision to move that. So as long as we know that we'll come back to discuss that and we won't use those funds until that point, I'm comfortable using a generic line item. And that goes for our staff too. Our staff needs to understand that also. Don't come asking me to move money because somebody has to do something. So we will want to do this in an open conversation with all of us.
All right. Courtney's giggling about that. All right. So
If I could just.
yes,
I
please.
think that's a good idea because, while the pickleball component at Tucker Rec was 600,000, you're not just going to be able to plop
To
that
replicate
amount,
that.
right? You're not just going to put on a court, you're going to do other enhancements such as parking and sidewalk and landscaping, and it's going to be way more than 600,000 because that was just a component of that project, which had some value add, right? 3 in 1.
It had a lot more. Okay. So it's 10 o'clock. Go ahead.
It's not about parks, but we didn't really talk. We sort of mentioned it. Several of us mentioned it, but if we're talking about the CIP and timing under the roads versus trails, we didn't really circle back to South Peachtree Creek. And
Okay.
so I would like us to, if we have a little
Yep.
time to talk about
We
it.
have some time. We can come back and we can talk about that one. And I think, yeah, let's talk about that. And then let's think about taking all of this back right after this. And then coming back on May 4th at 6 o'clock.
With our lightsabers.
With, oh, Star Wars. Everybody come dressed up. All right, we'll have a party. And, okay, well, I'm gonna come back to have you tell us instructions and homework and all that. So let's talk about, and we gotta change the names of these trails. They're so confusing. Peachtree Creek Greenway Connector and then South blah, 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 blah. Like, there's a lot. Even like, the Tucker Middle School is looking at that and they're confused by it. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute, let me go back. So
Well, I know when we were having the conversations about important trails, and I know it's like a soapbox, and we're still waiting to formally approve the Trails and Transportation Master Plan. But I think we've discussed this like numerous times in different ways, that to me, that trail is a really important investment in an underinvested area that has connections to both residential and commercial spaces, that serves to connect multiple districts. And I just have concerns about putting anything 5 years out when I feel like it's literally like one of the more critical like projects that we have on our list. And so I don't know how, because I know y'all are going to go back after tonight and make some changes. And so I don't know exactly what that means, but and again, it's not a District 3 project, but I just feel like it's such an important, for all the things that we want to have happen. And even with like having the connector funding, right? Like it's a connector between two trails, including this one. So it's such a way to expand downtown's footprint to more people that if we're saying that this is a representation of our priorities, having the capital projects not start till, I don't remember the exact year. I know Councilmember Schroeder does. I think we should figure out how we can get some kind of money a little earlier so that we can.
So I want an update from Ken. Where are we on this trail? Give us a great update like you did for the Tucker North Lake Trail, so then we can have that conversation.
Yes, so the project is locally funded. The design is probably about 90% complete. It's been held up a little bit because of the floodplain issues and getting permitting from FEMA. We're going down a county sewer easement for part of it. We have to get permitting from them. So a lot of factors, but we're getting close to completing the design on that. Right of way is underway. Acquisition that has been budgeted. John, I don't know if you have an update on the right of way acquisition, but I know I handed that off, and I'm not sure, but we probably acquired maybe 10 parcels out of 22, something like that.
So we are, okay, so go back. Design is not done, but we've started right away acquisition.
Yes, but we're close enough with design. We know where it's going.
Okay.
We know the parameters, so we know the right of way impact. So we're able to do some of that concurrently. But right, construction is currently unfunded.
So how far along are we on right away? So we're halfway done on right away. How many parcels?
I think it was 22 or 23.
Sorry, I was reading something. We got some kind of update about the fire station stuff. Something was a typo, which I worked on when I was at ACCG. Okay. So, all right. So 22 parcels. We're halfway done. And bless you, we could start. How much is construction?
Construction about $8 million. So this is another one we would probably want to phase. I would think we maybe want to break that into a couple of phases.
Sorry.
I'm not done yet. Okay. So are you in the process of looking at it to break it into phases? Have you thought through that at all? Like downtown?
Yeah, one would think you would start at downtown because it would actually connect to something.
Have we purchased a right of way there?
Not all of it, no.
Okay. I'm just wondering if we start at we say we have half the right of way, but is it like some here, some here, some here? Or is it okay. 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 How much do you think that first phase would be? Spitball it.
Hadn't really looked at that because we don't have the.
Sure, the right away yet.
We don't have the funding, but,
But we could.
yeah, no,
So
we
let's
could.
talk about that.
So we'll have to go back and look at it, how
Okay.
to break it up.
All right. Okay. Now,
Sorry, I just wanted to say, this is why I was confused, because it's listed under design, not funded. But we've funded enough that we are actually acquiring right of way. So even if the construction is not funded, we are buying land for it. So like, that's a distinction to me besides like, that's different than, oh, we have a design and we haven't even started purchasing land. So just to my earlier point about clarifying for us, because to me, we've started the project because we're buying land.
we haven't started the construction, right? Ken, that's what the differentiator is, right? Okay. All right.
So I was a little surprised that it was also pushed down, as I mentioned in our briefing a week ago, to 23, 24, 20, 34, sorry, 34, 35, I meant to say. It's hard to believe we're in 30s. I apologize. And I guess what I was curious about was, one, because we're almost done with design, can we match up some federal funding as an opportunity and try to get it kind of pushed back up? I don't know what the capacity is if we got the funding to get it obviously built, even in phase one. But I was curious from our retreat. I thought there were a couple of us that said we wanted this to move forward because it, again, is so close to the Tuckertown Green, beyond downtown district, or is in downtown district when you started, I think. I mean, it would be great to have something that would continue as much as we could along the South Fork, which is, of course, one of the prominent waterways we have in Tucker, since we don't have any major lakes. So
Let's build a river walk.
I mean, I'm just saying, oh, it's not funny because I think someone told Virginia and I to do that in a brainstorming session at GMA. But that being said, we didn't go for that one. But I'm just curious if there's a way to get creative about this. And I'm also happy to sit down with the staff and talk to you about the relationship with South Fork, Peachtree Creek Conservancy, and whether they could also help us. So I just want to put that out there.
Or we could move other projects around and put more funding towards all the trails. And do that. That's the conversation, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I agree with Councilmember Weaver and Schroeder. I'm willing to sit down and make some hard cuts and push other projects out.
And let's make sure that it's across all districts.
Across all districts.
All districts.
I'll cut a lot of from mine. Yeah, just to get this done. I really do think this is a pretty high impact. Just looking at the beginning of the trail section, we have a lot of unused parcels there that would be ripe for redevelopment if we were put something there to kind of activate the area. So yeah, I'm all for it.
We may be solving our fire station issue soon.
Yeah. Just in general, there are some projects on our CIP for sidewalks, and I just kind of want to get a general temperature check from the rest of the council to focus more on building the trails instead of having both sides of a road having sidewalks. I think one side is enough for now while we focus on, building out the economic development and trail system.
I want to just also jump in here. I think we could look at that, and I think that's a good way to save some money, resources right now. And I know that we're kind of wrapping up because you wanted to cover that one agenda item, but I also have some more questions. Some have been answered through email about budget, but I also want to talk at some point, and we can do that perhaps next Monday about the Revive L29, because there are some ideas that have come up from constituents about that as well. So, but I don't want to keep us any longer because I think everybody's is thinking about wrapping up. So, but I literally have a presentation about Revive L29 when it comes to the projects inside that have been recommended that fit right next to Main Street at Lawrenceville Highway, and then going north there at that huge intersection that's real cranky that curves where the old Chick-fil-A was. And there's some projects inside it that are specific to beautification and access management. I think we need to take a look. I know that we have $500,000 allocated in this budget now. I think that we need to visit that. And I don't know when that will play out, but I just want to say that.
Well, and that's good. And thank you for bringing up the sidewalk conversation too. Again, tough decisions. So I think we need to give us a charge, but I understand that. And again, I'm going to say, yeah, you're saying, okay, if we want trail, let's push off sidewalk. Well, that's a good compromise, right? We need to think about that. But then there's also people who will never use our trail and might need those sidewalks now to walk to a bus stop to get to work. Like, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying, like, in my head, I can play both sides of everything. Like I said today, somebody earlier, I'm not married to any of these. And honestly, whatever we do is going to be good. And whatever we get done is going to be good and benefit the whole city. I'm more concerned about how do we maintain them and operate at a level of excellence so people do know when they come into Tucker it is a different place, right? So that's my major concern. So I'm not married to any of these, and I can, I'm in PR. I can argue both sides of any of these projects. It doesn't bother me at all. So when you start to think about, I want this, this, and this, start thinking about what you're willing to give up, right? Or not even give up, because it's in the CIP. It just needs to be pushed out. So what are you willing to say, I want this in fiscal year 28, 27, 28, 29, and I'm willing to push this back here. It doesn't mean necessarily it's going to get pushed out and not be done. We could come into money. We could do bond funding. There's other ways. But right now you want us to focus on 27. What do we need in that? We can kind of soft agree on the other projects. But if you want something moved up 27, 28, be thinking about what you're willing to push back.
And Mayor, just if I could just jump
Yeah,
into
of
that
course.
last point, it might be ideal for if council broadly as a whole wants us as staff to take a look at that. Because there are some restrictions, because of course you have like your SPLOST percentages and things like that. So I don't want you to go through an exercise of, I'm trying to move all these pieces that can't necessarily move. So if council probably wants, staff could look at that to try to come back then next week to say, well, here's the most movable pieces. And then we could maybe have a little bit better conversation at that point based on that.
That's great. And because some of that we know we can't move because of that grant funding, right? Some of the stuff so that would be very helpful for you guys to come back and say, okay, we heard you on this. This can move, this can't move. I think in my head, even you talk about sidewalks. Well, you're building the roundabouts, you might as well do the Idlewood sidewalks, right? Because the roundabouts are there. I don't know. Like, you got to get into the weeds and the details of that and bring it back and say, this is what I think because of this. And this is how it meets all those filters. It checks 4 out of 5 of the filters. It checks the vision, it checks the filters, and here's what I'm willing to pass over, right? So that's what we're going to get into coming up.
And just to be clear, just so that everybody in consensus to that, do you want staff to look at all of sidewalk projects that have potential, as well as any other road projects that have potential of being moved as well?
What do you think?
I think we have to look at all of it, especially if we have SPLOST as like guidance. But I will say we were intentional on some of those SPLOST things to be broad. So, but I mean, I think anything that's flexible would be good to look at.
All right. Everybody feel good? Okay, hold on, right here.
Just a question about that. Like, I can't find my notes, but how much money are we how much monopoly money are we playing with here? Like, what is it? Is it like 7.9 from SPOS, 7.9 million or something? I can't remember the number. So that's what I'd like to know, because when we're talking about, you know, an $8 million project alone, which, by the way, I'm in full support. I don't know what it is with me and this microphone. I keep beating it up. I'm in full support of the South Fork Peachtree Creek, full support. I don't know how we're gonna finance it. We can't get federal grant money for it, as I understand. We could look into CDS. We might be able to get CDS. I don't know. But
We
because
just
we're
have to
too
move
far-
something else. We just gotta, if that's what we want to fund, then other stuff's got to
We're
go.
talking about moving $8 million.
No,
in
not
order to-
necessarily. It could be phase one. It could be phase two. It could be moving phase one up to,
But even if it's not the total amount, I do think that, because I think what I want to say is that, like, I'm not, you know, I'm not like jumping up and down. I cannot talk tonight. I don't know what my deal is. I haven't been able to talk all day, actually.
okay.
So, but, you know, I'm not exactly excited about what the list is. But again, you guys have worked so hard in order to meet the criteria, look at the timeline, all of these things. And now we're asking you to go back. And I'm just saying, that's tough, because I don't know how we're going to do. I want to do them. I want to do them all. I want to do North Lake Trail. I want to get it all done. I want to get all these trails done. I just think that, you know, and it was really good to do the exercise of the timeline and GDOT and all those things, because we have these conversations, but it's hard to keep it all together. I took all kinds of notes just to try to keep it ingrained, but it is really hard. I just want to acknowledge, for, in my opinion, as a non-finance person in any stretch of the imagination at all, don't do math, to be able to put all this together with all of the criteria that you're trying to do. So thank you
Yeah.
for that. I'm happy to have the conversations, but I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, and definitely all credit goes to finance, Eric and his team and the staff, department heads getting this together. To answer a little bit of that is, I think we're gonna have to do a little bit further evaluation to really know numbers, to be solid on that. There's a lot of moving pieces to it, so it is a little challenging to just really gauge that. So we don't want to tell you a number and that not necessarily be the case. But I mean, we're happy to be able to evaluate that to see if it does offer better value towards what the council goals are, and what you're trying to get to. And I think what we can do, and if you want me to go ahead and go into sort of some next steps, and I can do that for us. But next steps, we'll go through and do that, as well as I know we're renaming to a more generic peanut butter line item. So we'll have those ready for you. We can try to send this information back out to everybody to review. I think it could be helpful for the sake of timing as we're getting to May the 4th. If there are additional questions, if we could send those in, might be helpful, just so we can try to
No
kind
phone
of.
calls, email them in, because you're going to share that back out with all of us, right?
That's right. So we'll try to answer as many of those and try to, we'll try the best we can to really, depending on volume, pull the pertinent questions for the group as much as humanly possible, you know, just so we can maximize your time getting into next week. But I think if everybody could send in any additional questions that you do have, please send those. You could send those to John, myself, Eric. We'll work to get those answered, and then we'll have a plan then going into next week. Okay. And then from there, we'll work through the remainder of those questions that need to be worked through, as well as we'll still be able to address any other capital items that I know we weren't able to address tonight. I know it's kind of a slow grind in trying to get through all of this, and it's a lot of information, and I know it is still transformational in the thinking that we're having towards that of how we view those things. So I think still great conversation, and I mean, if y'all want to go another hour, I probably got it in me, but hey, look, late's late. I'm already past my bedtime, but at this point, I mean, we can go through and really have those good conversations, and it's going to make it a lot easier as we do get to future budgets. So this kind of sets the stage for us as we do any of our future planning on how we do it and the retreats that we've had. The combination of all those things are going to make it so much easier to where you're probably going to look back in maybe another year or so, and it's going to be like this, and you're going to be like, wow, that was painless and didn't even have to think about anything. So we're really happy for that. But I think those are what the next steps probably most appropriately could be to try to help us maximize Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you.
All right, we're gonna do mayor and council comments, but I've got a question for each person as part of your council comments. All right. Be thinking, here I come. If you could only fund one project in fiscal year 27 after what you heard, and some might not be possible because they're too long and everything else, or you could push all the money towards that one project. Fiscal year 2027, what would that project be? All right, just be thinking. After what you heard from tonight, it might change from what you did before, it might not, but it might help guide you when you go home and what you're thinking about. We won't hold you to it, but I just want to see, what were you thinking? All right, Councilman.
I'll go with South Fork, just because Tucker North Lake Trail, we discussed that throwing money at it won't make it go any faster, so.
Okay.
Hugh Howell Road, Rosser.
Right. Amy, Councilwoman Troche, sorry.
Yeah, based on realism and impact, I agree with Councilman Nguyen. Like normally, the North Lake Trail is, really important to me, but given that we couldn't make it go faster with more money, I support the South Fork Trail.
Okay. Councilman, sorry. After 9, I should be able to call you by your first name.
You can. Thank you for all the work you all done, but especially you, I appreciate it. It's clarifying this process and the results we're aiming for better than the normal fog that's in my head. If you've named that holding account Eric's checkbook, you've misnamed it. And finally, I'm actually switching. Well, you know what my first thought is. My second thought, the more practical one at this point, is I'm actually going to agree with the mayor's comment last time in the rec center.
I just want to express how much I appreciate everybody's patience and collaboration on this budget. And moving forward, we have quite a few more discussions ahead. I think I would, if I only had one, I think I would just stick with Henderson Park because we have so many things we need to do there as soon as the plan's done.
I think I'm still with South Fork Peachtree. And part of the reason is I think we don't have enough information on return on investment, but when we talk about how much things cost, we also have to think about how much value they will bring in and how quickly we can see that value. So for me, South Peachtree Creek is a trail that is a capital outlay that will have dividends back in faster than some of our other projects that are in more residential areas. So I think it grows our tax base in a very intentional, particular way and leads us faster to some of our goals.
A different project? Then I will go straight to my District 1 counterpart. I think it's going to be funded anyway, but I think it's really important to get the Hugh Howell Rosser Road safety improvements funded and in place as quickly as possible.
All right. So 3 for South Fork Peachtree Greenway? No? Is that what it's called?
Greenway.
South Fork Peachtree Creek Trail. Whoa, that's a mouthful. We gotta change that. All right. We gotta change that name. Okay. Roster Road, we got 2, and Henderson, we got 1. That's pretty good. Right? I don't know. John just looked at me like I'm crazy. I'm not giving mine yet.
No.
I'm not giving mine. Because I told you, you know what I want? I want every trash can emptied on time. I don't want to see shopping carts in our community. I want to see illegal signs down. I want to see street sweeping. I don't want to see weeds. I don't want to see litter. That's my big thing. These projects are great, but all that other stuff is what people see when they come in and out of our community, and it's economic development and safety. That's all I care about. I go out and pick it up myself anyway. All right. Yes, sir.
Just real quick, just to reiterate what Derek said and what some of you all said, these folks have done an amazing job pulling this together. And this was a heavy lift the first go around. And I think we're really setting the stage. It will be easier for us moving forward. But this is really the first time that we've taken a comprehensive, long-term, 10-year look of what we can do, and one that's been completely driven by what a balanced budget without sort of side conversations, and then bringing this all forward to you. So I think we really set the stage.
I do. Thank you. It's a new day, right? All right. Thank y'all. All right. Motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second that motion.
All right. Any discussion on that? All right. All those in favor? All right. Thanks, y'all.
Micah.